So that's great, that's why we grow it. Carol, how are you? Happy with it? Good.
What you say?
Well,
What's that?
Five Fox.
Oh my God.
No.
Anyways, Firefox or? Well, I'm doing it. Anyway, so that's what bucks me about.
Looks like we're finally ready to start, so why don't we start with the Pledge of Allegiance?
Stay tuned on the Texas case.
As presiding officer of the special meeting of the West New York Zoning Board of Adjustment, I do hereby publicly announce that the notice requirements provided for in the Open Public Meeting Act have been satisfied. Further, I direct that this announcement shall be placed in the minutes of this meeting. Notice of this meeting was properly given by the West New York Zoning Board of Adjustment on November 6, 2014, by publishing in the Jersey Journal, publicly posting on the municipal bulletin board, and filing with the town clerk. Roll call, please.
Kenneth Blaine,
Here.
Ramon Moynihan,
Here.
Jesus Alvarado, Rosemary Puerto, Alberto Chapin, Evelina Valdez, John Rhodes.
Here.
The first item on the agenda is the payment resolution for our attorney in the amount of $8,460 for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 matters. I've spoken to Mr. Morris about this, and he's made whatever accommodations I felt were necessary to make it even more reasonable than it already is. I feel comfortable moving this before the full board for approval and do so, and ask for a second. Is there a second? Roll call, please.
Kenneth Blaine,
Yes?
Ramon Moynihan, Jesus Alvarado, Alberto Chapin, John Rhodes.
Mr. Vice Chair, would you pass that down, please, to our board secretary? Thank you. The next item on the agenda is a memorializing resolution in the matter of 56th Street LLC for property located at 561-563 56th Street. This was approved on October 8th, and I asked our attorney whether the memorializing resolution does in fact accurately state what happened at the hearing and any additional conditions the board may have put on it.
Yes, it does, and it's ready for the board's consideration.
That being said, I'll move for approval and ask for a second. Is there a second? Mr. Rhoda seconds. Roll call, please.
Kenneth Blaine,
Yes?
Ramon Moynihan, Jesus Alvarado, Alberto Chapin, John Rhodes.
The next and only other matter on the agenda is Meridian Boulevard, the continuation of the application. And before we start, I'd like to say, I think it's obvious this is not going to end tonight. It will be carried to our special meeting on December the 1st. However, at that meeting, we have two very small matters that are going to take place before that. I believe one relates to a parking area that the applicant wants to create after purchasing land for its employees, and the second relates to, I believe, the legalization of an apartment or that such. Therefore, I'd like to tell any member of the public that's here, the Meridian Boulevard matter that will be adjourned at the end of tonight to our December 1st special meeting will not start until 7:45 at the earliest, so people don't have to come here and wait and sit and be bothered. We will hold that matter until 7:45 at the earliest, assuming that we get done with the two other matters, very small matters that are before. Again, it's in these chambers. The Meridian Boulevard matter on December 1st will start no earlier than 7:45. That being said, I'll now turn the hearing over to Mr. Kantrowitz for his continuation of his examination regarding the Meridian Boulevard application.
Thank you, Mr. Mr. Chairman, members of the board. A quick housekeeping issue. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. A quick housekeeping issue. At the end of the last meeting, I indicated to the chair that I would provide excuse me, and the board with copies of the pages from the book I was examining Mr. Paraguay with, which in fact Mr. Paraguay pulled out from his office's shelf, called The Dimensions of Parking, 5th edition. I've made a couple of photocopies of the cover page with one of them, and then the Labor of Congress identifying page, and then the two, excuse me, the page that each of the two witnesses, Mr. Jenny and Mr. Paraguay, read from, and then a couple of pages that I was examining Mr. Paraguay about, just for the board's sake.
This is all from the same book?
Yes, sir. Yes,
All
sir.
right, so why don't we put them all together in one exhibit?
Yes, well, these are just several copies of the same exhibit.
And we'll call it, I think it's 07? 08. 08.
That's the
Oh,
cover
wait.
sheet.
But
Just-
call it 08?
So the board is aware, I didn't copy the cover page in each of them, since it just doesn't show
Well,
much.
then it's not acceptable, you know that.
Well, then I'll go back and copy some more.
No, we can't wait for that. We'll accept them as they are. Thank you, Mr. Chief.
Oh, wait, thank you.
But thank you for informing me that you didn't copy the cover page.
Mr. Chairman, I think it is 07.
Okay, wait, I've got,
You said 07, not 007, okay.
No, Mr. Cantwitz, that's my joke.
I have this 07,
I got one a
this
month.
Right, and that was
was not
not submitted.
submitted,
That
okay,
There was one that was withdrawn.
okay, all right,
All right,
so,
so let's make this 07. This is the book that you were questioning Mr. Paraguay.
Yes,
Please
Yes.
continue.
okay. I see Mr. Arecibi in the room. I don't know if he brought his plans that we were looking at last time, including that one sheet that showed the latest November 10th, 14 change. Remember, Mr. Arecibi, there was
Yes,
one
I have
sheet, I
it
think A100, that had a revision on it. I want to pursue a few questions on that, and finish up with Mr. Paraguay. And just for housekeeping, I saw what the change was. I haven't yet received, I don't know if the applicant submitted a 11 by 17 inch sheet of the A100 sheet varying the revision date of November 10th that we talked about at the last meeting.
100, 110.
I'm sorry.
From the car?
I'm sorry, 110, excuse me, 110, pardon me. I don't know if that was produced by anybody, by the applicant as was requested by the chair. But neither here nor there, let's go examine it, whether you're usable or not. You know?
Yes, I do.
Thanks. Whoa,
Oh, well, I don't have any.
okay.
It sounded like Humpty Dumpty there.
But I'm not a big
Okay, we can work without it, we could prop it up somewhere. What's that?
That was a long time.
Oh, the whole easel's broke.
Remember that?
I'm sorry?
The easel is broke.
I don't want to break this.
String.
Or it's-
Oh.
No, it's-
Good fall. Very far. We'll have no screen.
See?
I switched to my,
Progressive tickets and so on.
get better optician.
Do you know anybody? Okay, great, yes. Just for the board's orientation, again, we're looking at
yeah,
A110, which is the architectural depiction of the, excuse me, second and third floor parking layouts, and bearing a revision date of November 10, 2014. And just to go back, a couple of questions, Mr. Paraguay. Mr. Arecibi indicated that this sweep-in turn was something inserted by him in consultation or based upon your consultation using a 15.5-foot long depiction of a vehicle. Would you have any reason to disagree that a 2014 Nissan Altima exceeds the 15.5-foot sheet that you, 15.5-foot length that you proposed over there?
No.
Okay. And how about a 2013 Nissan Altima? No reason to disagree that those car lengths exceed the 15.5. And how about a 2014 Hyundai Sonata? Any reason to disagree that it exceeds the 15.5-foot length?
I'm sure not.
Excuse me?
I'm sure not. I'll check right now.
You don't disagree?
No.
In other words, the Hyundai Sonata of 2014 exceeds the length you proposed?
It does.
Okay, and how about the proposed 2015 Hyundai Sonata?
I don't know, but I
Don't
would
know.
assume they don't change too much.
Okay, so if I,
They don't change too much.
if I suggested to you that the length that the Hyundai Motor Company is proposing for its 2015 Sonata for all of its different models was 191.1 inches, you'd have no reason to disagree with that?
No.
And let's go on to a 2014 Chevy Malibu. Any reason, you have any basis to disagree that the exterior overall length of a Malibu is, exceeds 15.5, 15.5 feet that you're showing?
No.
Okay, and, excuse me. Fact, any reason to believe that the 2014 Ford Fusion exceeds or is equal to or less than 15.5 foot?
Is it greater than 15.5 yes?
Okay, by the way, as a matter of fact, you know that the Ford Fusion exceeds 15.5 foot?
Excuse me, Mr.
Yes.
Chris. Mr. Arnsiga, does the board have copies of the plans with the November 10th revision?
Of these, no.
So the board's at a loss regarding,
We have smaller copies they can hand out.
That's fine.
Okay.
I'll hold on. That's fine.
I think that's what we discussed last meeting, that we don't need the full-blown, whatever it is, 3x4 or whatever it is, that you were gonna make smaller versions for the board. Has that been marked, or will that be marked? Why don't we mark it 007?
Let's not shake it.
Or
Stir it.
08?
We're up to A8.
A8. A8.
Mr. Alonso's A8?
Oh, 08.
No, we're up to
A8.
08 and A8.
This is our.
This is your,
This is yours, Mr. Alonso.
Okay, yes,
So this would be A8?
yes.
And these are the November 10th revisions? Okay, that's fine.
Okay, I'm sorry, whenever the chair's ready to do it.
I'm absolutely ready. Please continue.
And Mr. Paraboy, you have a basis you have an opinion, a basis to respond to the question that the Ford Fusion is in fact greater than 15.5 feet long?
Yes.
Okay, and all the other cars I've asked you about, the Altima and the Hyundai and the Altima and the Sonata and the, that I asked you about, and the Malibu are all larger than 15.5.
Yes.
Okay, and if we get on to what are called minivans, a Toyota, I think it's a Toyota Odyssey, would you agree that the length of the Toyota Odyssey minivan exceeds the 15.5 foot shop space that you're showing?
It's possible, I don't know, that's not on my list.
Not on your list. Oh, wow. And if you can form an opinion, I'm gonna show you something I took down off the internet. Have a look, and all I want you to direct your attention
Can
on.
I show this to Mr. Alonso first?
Yeah, absolutely. I took this down off the internet, it's from the site of the Honda Car Company, one has to about the length that's being shown here, the car length is here. And there's 3 pages of The
I
only-
think it's you.
Yeah,
I can't.
just specs for the car.
We'll find out if there's one.
No objection.
Great, okay. Let me just direct your attention, this is just for set this up, this is some pages I took off the internet from the Honda Motor Car website. Googled in, asked them to produce the physical specifications of the 2015 Odyssey vehicle. And if you look down toward the bottom, they produce an exterior measurements, and I clicked on and down dropped the window to show them the exterior measurements. You see what I'm looking at?
Yes.
And just for your sake, if you look at the last page, you'll see it printed out, copyright of the Honda Motor Car. Okay, I'm just asking, the exterior measurement of length of this Odyssey minivan of 202 inches, 0.1 or 0.9 exceeds 15.5 feet. You'd agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. Now, also, we talked about last time, you'll recall, this Dimensions of Parking 5th edition book, which I provided copies, and you were gracious enough to pull your copy in front of you off the shelf in your office. If we look at page 61, this book, in terms of discussing parking lot stall size, recommend, if I read this correctly, on page 62, currently the recommended length of a parking space is 18 feet, 5.5 meters, and that this recommendation is based on the length of the design vehicle, 17 feet 3 inches, plus 9 inches to account for typical distance from the bumper of a parked vehicle to the end of the stall. Did I read that correctly?
Yes.
So fair to say that this book that sits on your shelf recommends an 18-foot space because they are basing it on cars that are, as they say, design vehicles 17 feet 3 inches. Fair enough? Oh. Now, you'd also conclude, would you not, well, I'm asking, I don't know the answer. If this were longer, strike that. Is it conceivable or reasonable that a person who's handicapped might drive in a minivan vehicle such as the Honda Odyssey, or be driven in that kind of car so as to allow the rows behind the driver row to be outfitted to harness a wheelchair or some sort of sitting aid if someone were handicapped? Reasonable assumption? Sure. Possible. Could happen.
Yes.
Great. Now, I'd like to presume, if you know the answer, that anybody who's got a handicapped vehicle driving any of the cars that I suggested is going to be told, you got to park in the lower, on the first level in those spaces?
Any of the handicap spaces.
Any of the handicapped spaces. Okay, so someone driving a Sonata is going to be told, you park up, you got to park on the second deck.
It will be available to
Be
them.
available, okay. And tell me something, in designing the sweep of the vehicle into the space, is that sweep in any way, shape, or form a function of the length of the vehicle?
To a certain extent, it's more the turning radius of the vehicle.
Okay. Well, do you know if the turning radius of the vehicle is functional or related in any way, shape, or form to the length of the vehicle? Is there any relationship?
Turning radius not necessarily, but the sweep that the vehicle makes when it turns.
Okay, is it reasonable?
I'm sorry, the sweep that
That the vehicle makes when it turns.
And is it reasonable that the sweep creates a greater arc if the vehicle is longer?
It does.
Now, would this depiction be altered in any fashion if the width of the aisle currently shown on A110 revision date 11/10/14, if the width of that aisle were not 20 feet 9 inches but was something short, narrower, would that affect the sweep?
It would it affect the depiction on the plan?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, and I don't know if this depiction shows it, but is this depiction designed to show that a driver driving this vehicle will effect entry into that space in one single sweep maneuver?
Yes, that design vehicle, that's shown, can pull into that space in one maneuver.
That is shown, I can't hear you.
Can pull into that space in one maneuver with the dimensions that we proposed.
Okay, but this does not show what the sweep or what the, excuse me, strike that. This A10 does not show what the sweep would be if the width of that aisle were lessened from 20 foot 9 inches, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, do you know whether what I'll call dual use ramps? I'm sorry. Do you know whether a 6% grade, strike that. I'm pointing to A100. You see the 6% grade just at the entrance, just before one would come across the three handicap spaces to the left as one enters?
Yes.
If you know, do you know whether parking of handicapped vehicles is, first of all, is allowed on 2% ramp, on 2% slope?
It is.
It is, okay. Do you know whether a 6% walking, a 6% ramp is permissible to enable handicapped individuals to access their cars from either the building or from the street? Do you know?
When they're pedestrians?
Yeah, when they're pedestrians.
No, I believe 2% is the slope.
Okay, so how would, just maybe I missed something, a person getting out of his handicapped vehicle would what, walk through the back here and get into the staircase and avoid a 6% ramp? Is that what you're telling someone to do?
Yeah, there's a door adjacent to the van accessible space.
Adjacent to the,
The van accessible space. to get to
Okay,
the lobby.
so just so the board's clear, anybody parking in here comes out to the front, the 2%, goes up the 2%, and then goes to the, makes a left turn in his or her in wheelchair, or however that person ambulates, and comes through that door and gets the stair area, the stairs or to the elevator.
Yes,
And-
presumably the elevator.
Okay. So that a handicapped person has no ability to access the front of the building by getting out and going to the street, or to get to the street.
Correct.
Now, this seems obvious, but I'm going to ask you. As far as I know, you have not done any other calculations of vehicle sweep for any of these parking spaces, except the one shown on A110 bearing revision date 11/10/14, correct?
I've examined the other spaces in my office with the clear acetate version of the turning template, but no, that's the only one that we have the representation on the plan.
Okay. And you were here, you may have been here for that very dry, long, mundane examination I did of Mr. Aracivia talking about spaces and widths and aisle widths and so on and so forth, correct?
Yes.
Have you presented, again, an obvious question, but I want to nail it down. Have you presented any depiction of how that vehicle sweep would operate if the aisles were more narrow because the spaces were lengthened to 18 foot?
No.
Okay. Have you done that back at your office on with the acetate overlay of that turning radius?
No.
I believe the other piece of the parking design that Mr. Aracivia talked about, that you consulted on, was the ramping, correct?
Yes.
And just to be clear, because Mr. Aracivia a lot of questions, was there anything else in this parking depiction that you consulted on beside the ramping?
Just the general layout of the spaces and location of the spaces as we requested, as with the development plans.
Okay. Mr. Aristide tonight, last time,
Next slide, please.
I'm now going to turn you to A220. Right? We didn't get to it last time, but A220 is also a revision that was produced on November 10 by Mr. Aristide based upon interaction with you, correct?
He produced that on his own.
Oh.
That's a depiction of
So
the.
he produced that, right?
He produced that on
He
his own.
produced this on his own.
Yes, it's just a depiction of what we proposed.
Okay, so you can't, you're not in a position to testify to the height of this car. It's depicted in very light shading going up one of the entrance aisles, right? You can't tell me the height of that because you didn't participate in this at all.
No.
This is all Mr. Aristide doing it.
Yes.
Okay. And you can't, okay. You examined this at all? Have a chance to look at any of this?
Yes.
You did, okay. But plainly, your practice doesn't entail ramps and parking spaces, right?
It does to a certain extent, but when it comes to the design, the structural design of a parking garage, that's not something that we do.
So
You look at-
stand,
you look
so,
at the geometry of the parking spaces, the geometry of the drive-bys, things of that nature, but when it comes to the structural design and columns and things of that nature, that's a separate discipline.
but there wasn't a single mention in any of in your written report and your written response that discussed the geometry of the parking and so forth. Not a word, right?
In the written report?
Yeah.
Probably not.
Okay.
Typically described in testimony, and it changes after my report's done sometimes as we perfect the design.
Now, now I'm going to test your memory. Remember being back there the first time? Back during the year 2012, we may have spilled into 2013 with testimony on the first Meridia application of this property?
Yes.
And you were retained as a traffic expert to render testimony on that. Remember that?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'm just gonna object to that. All those proceedings were deemed invalidated because the board did not have jurisdiction, so there really is no record. It wasn't valid.
Where are you going with this?
I'm going to impeach this witness's credibility because under oath he made certain statements, and I'm entitled to examine the statements he made under oath and in order to impeach his credibility. Plain and simple. It doesn't matter that the proceedings were deemed invalid. Nobody invalidated the swearing and testimony of the witnesses.
I mean, whether they were made under oath, if somebody made them in the street and they can be verified, et cetera, isn't the witness entitled to be questioned about that?
The problem is that there is no record from which to impeach his credibility because the board did not have jurisdiction.
I understand, except there is a transcript with witness's testimony that was made under oath. That exists.
Right, I'll just preserve it, keep it.
Okay.
Thank you. I'll proceed. Mr. Paraguay, do you recall, and I'll show you a copy of a transcript from Thursday, July 26, 2012.
Mr. Alonso, let me distinguish your objection also. I don't think the fact is that there is not a transcript or that there's not testimony. I think the problem is that 3 to 4 members who heard shouldn't have been sitting. So the hearing did take place, but the hearing was invalidated. That doesn't mean the hearing did not take place.
For lack of quorum, for a number of reasons. Because once you invalidate those board members, then the board loses the quorum.
Okay.
And therefore, no hearing could have taken place.
Well, I think that's a great argument. That's a very good argument to make on appeal.
Now,
I appreciate what you're saying.
Because if we're going to use the transcripts, then can I use the transcripts based on the findings by the board? At the conclusion, when the original application was approved?
Well, you
It's
can't,
a slippery slope.
no, it's not, because those board members should not have been on the board. So you can't use anything relating to them, because the testimony that was given under oath during that period, that's what I'm permitting. I'm permitting the testimony that was given under oath.
All right,
And that's a matter of objection, I understand. Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna proceed. Mr. Paraguay, I'm holding a copy of the transcript of board proceedings in the matter of Meridian Loop Boulevard, 6609-15 Boulevard East and 967th Street, Block 2, lots 9 and 10, from July 26, 2012, and it was prepared by the Metropolitan Court Reporting Service, certified court reporters. You ever seen it, in all your testimony, have you ever seen anybody show you a transcript of testimony?
Yes.
So you're familiar with this?
Yes.
Okay. And,
excuse me, do you have a copy for me to follow along? Generally, that's what the procedure is, provide a copy of the transcript, so I can follow along for purposes of any redirect.
I don't have an extra copy, I've got it online. I don't have a computer.
I understand, but you're using it to cross-examine a witness.
Yeah.
Normally you would provide me a copy so that I could follow along.
Well,
Okay, when we do this, why don't we forestall questioning Mr. Paraguay regarding the testimony given at the first Meridia La Boulevard application until you can provide him with a copy? Because I think it is certainly,
yeah, that's fair, fair.
I think it's certainly fair to have the opposing attorney
Fair.
have the same information to follow your question.
That's a fair question. I'm just gonna, if you would allow me to ask the secretary, if during the break, does your office have a copy machine that can produce copies about 4 pages worth of testimony?
Well, the problem with that is when a witness is being questioned, and I don't know if that was doing cross-examination or direct examination, sometimes they jump around. And a lot of times you gotta read these transcripts, and in the middle of the trial, you'll hear an attorney refer to one section of the transcripts, but if you read a page before or a page after that, you see that there's a difference in interpretation or it's taken out of context. So I would need to see the whole transcript to put it in the proper context. So 4 pages doesn't do no good, because at the next page, he
All right, why
corrects
don't we do
himself.
this? At the break, let Mr. Alonso sit, and let Mr. Alonso determine how many pages you may need. It may not be the whole, it may be 3 pages before and 3 pages after.
The problem is, I don't know what his line of questioning is, I don't know what the answer is going to be.
Well, can you limit yourself to the 4 pages or whatever you?
Sure, and by
Well, he
the
would
way,
limit himself.
by the way, everything he's argued is certainly purposeful and proper for him to do on a redirect examination of this witness. Because his suggestion is that I hand him 14 transcripts consisting of about 1,700 pages, because he's suggesting that maybe the answer he's giving on July 26 relates to the first hearing or the last hearing. So he's suggesting in order for me to ask him questions about 4 pages at most of transcripts, he needs 1,700 pages in hand.
I'm not suggesting anything. What I'm saying is the proper way to do it is to provide him with a copy of the document going to be used to cross-examine my witness.
I'll do it for great.
Okay.
All right? Then let me finish with Mr. Paraboy, because I'll hold it for the break, and I'll go on to Mr. Arcivia.
That's all you have left from Mr. Perry?
I have a few questions based on.
Right, based on the prior testimony.
Prior testimony, yes.
Okay.
That's all. Okay? I can ask Mr. Arcivia, he's got his study, he's got his other thing.
Okay.
All right, I'll just hold off to ask him several questions about the prior testimony.
Okay.
I'll call Mr. Arcivia. Mr. Arcivia, real quick question. You confirm that in drawing A220 with revision date 11/10/14, you did not consult him in terms of doing the drawing that's shown here with the various levels and heights and so forth?
Correct.
Okay. All right. You don't hold a degree in engineering, do you?
No, I do not.
Okay. I thought he was gonna bring in the rest of the shade study, that was suggested to do next time, if we're not. You have it? No?
You do have it.
Okay. Unless you want me to go with Mr. Sweat, I can talk to Mr. Sweat and then go with Mr.
It's up to you, but it's up to you. Mr. Insibious just answered that he does have the full year, is that what we're looking for?
Yes.
The full year of the shade study, so if you wanna have him show that
Yes.
and question that, or if you wanna talk to Mr. Swade, whatever you wanna do is fine.
Why don't we work with Mr. Arcidi at this point,
Okay.
and then spend a few minutes, it won't be long, and then I can go on to Mr. Sweat,
Okay.
or break and go to Mr. Paraguay and finish with Mr. Sweat.
Okay.
Great. Go ahead.
So what are you gonna do?
I'd like to see the rest of the shade study.
Well, then I guess I need to direct him then.
Okay, well,
Is that the way we do it?
yeah, obviously.
Yes,
Okay, so then,
because he has to present the additional portion of the shade study
okay.
That's direct testimony.
as direct test.
So then I gotta take this down. Do you wanna finish with this first, before we do shade studies, so it's gonna go back and forth?
Well, I'll ask you a simple question. What's the height of that vehicle? What's the vertical height of that vehicle shown on A220?
I don't have that.
Okay, thank you. That's all I want.
And again, Mr. Alonso, I remember you stating that you were, for the record, you were gonna provide a CD of the shade study. I assume the shade study will now be 12 months instead of this.
That's correct. Whatever's being presented with this PowerPoint presentation will be reduced to a CD.
Mr. Wanda, can you burn an extra CD for me? Thank you. Please burn an extra CD for me. Thank you.
Well, so we don't duplicate, if you don't mind, whatever month we've done so far.
Right, which is the addition.
What do we do so far? We did
We did May through September.
May through September, so this is October through April.
Correct.
So you wanna start in October, and then work way down, or you wanna start in March and work way back? How does that
When we
go?
start, Mr. Kantridge, regarding the additional months, my suggestion is we're gonna start in October
Yes,
and work our way through to April.
fine, thank you.
Okay. Just for the board's clarification, what we've done in these months, we've actually showed the view, also showing the south side of the Halifax. So you can see the impact on the Halifax as well, because I know that came up in the previous meeting, so.
Line your way.
No, it's just so dark, we don't see any contrast.
Just got it, because it's dark, there's no light.
More to the north one.
I thought this was like the little thing that's gonna be even darker.
the 21st of the month as previous? So the first would be October 21st?
This is March.
I thought we're going October through April.
Mr. Anshiba, can you just identify which month this is?
This is month of October, the 21st of October.
Just tell us what we're seeing.
Again, you're seeing basically the three properties that we modeled, the Halifax, the Versailles, and our building. And you're seeing the shadows from the morning all to the end of the day.
Okay, now, I noticed that this is from a different perspective
That's
compared
correct.
to what we saw on the May through September
That's right.
analysis. Can you explain to us, number one, what we're seeing, and number two, why it's a different perspective?
Again, well, the reason we do this perspective is because there was a lot of questioning regarding the impact of the shadow on the Halifax, on the south face of the Halifax building. So in order to do these additional shadow studies, we decided to change the perspective a little bit so you actually see the impact on both of the structures versus just the one that we were concentrating on before.
Okay, and what perspective is this now? Where do we see this from?
It's basically south west of our project site.
Now, based on what we learned at the last meeting, the pool is open for 2 weeks in September. So now, by the time we get to October, then
The pool's not an issue.
the pool is not an issue anymore, but you're still showing the pool on the plan.
Correct. So at this point in time, this shows also the shadows that it throws on both Halifax and on the side, and vice versa.
Now, one of the, there was a series of questions during cross-examination last time with respect to the impact of the shadows from the Meridia building. And we were being asked multiple times if the one shadow was independent from other shadows, whether it's from the Halifax or from the Versailles itself. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Okay, but during those periods of time, even though they may be independent, there was still an impact from those other shadows onto the pool areas.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, so at some point, maybe just be a very little sliver of sunlight because there was a shadow from one of the other buildings.
That is correct.
So just explain to us, just run through this is October now?
Yes, it is.
Just run through October first and tell us what we see.
Okay, again, October, you basically see this is the morning. It shows in the east, so you see the shadow that the Versailles is casting on our building as well as the Halifax that is running through. You see the shadow that the Versailles is casting on the Halifax here.
And actually, the Versailles is so tall that that shadow goes over the Halifax to adjoining properties further west.
That's correct. And here you see our building casting shadow on the Halifax. Now passing the Halifax. Now casting the shadow on the beginning of the Versailles.
And what time is this?
This is only 5 o'clock. So you can see here you have some of the shadow on Versailles and some of the shadow on the south face of the Halifax. Would you like to move on to the next one?
Now, when the shadow, what time is this? 9 a.m. So 9 a.m. when Versailles is casting the shadow westward, approximately how much of the proposed building is casting shadow?
On the Halifax?
On our building, the proposed Meridian.
I'm sorry, the proposal,
Meridian,
it's passing on who?
on us. Versailles.
Versailles, oh, it's pretty much on, looks like pretty much the entire front of our building, and it's passed and it's blocking out completely the south side and most of the east side of the Halifax.
And so the east side of the Halifax and almost all of the south of the side of the Halifax.
Correct.
Okay. And what time is it now?
At 11 o'clock.
So 11 o'clock is basically when, at least on the south side of the Halifax, the Versailles is no longer casting a shadow on the Halifax.
That's correct.
Okay, but can you tell from this angle whether or not it's still casting a shadow from the Versailles onto the easterly side of Halifax?
I would look, it appears that it is still, yes.
Okay, so the existing condition is casting a shadow from the Versailles onto the Halifax?
Yes.
And at what point does it basically no longer cast a shadow because it's too low, but the sun is too low?
About 5 o'clock.
And the shadow cast on the Versailles itself, I don't know if you did this calculation, but if you can approximate what percentage of the westerly side of the Versailles is casting shadow at 5 o'clock?
About a third maybe.
And is that the worst condition?
Yes, for that month, yes.
Is there anything else you want to add with respect to October?
I think it's pretty clear, you know, the shadows are being cast by, Versailles, being cast by both meridians, volume, it's mass, that's shot.
Now, just a quick question, the massing that you did on the proposed Meridian building, is it the same massing that you used in the other one?
Yes.
All right, if you have nothing further on October, you can move to November. Okay, so now, we have November, again, the 21st. Can you just tell the board what is that we're seeing as we run through this?
Again, in the morning, the shadows cast on Meridian and Halifax by the Versailles through certain time of the
Now,
morning.
What time is this?
This is 9:30. At 9:30, you can see that the Halifax is completely engulfed in Versailles shadow.
Now, if you go west from the Halifax, how far does the Versailles shadow extend?
Looks like it's almost to the end of that block.
Almost the entire block?
Correct.
Okay, what do we see now?
Around 11:30, you see the Versailles shadow kind of just basically just ending the effect that it has on the Halifax.
Okay, now, I'm looking at the upper left-hand corner of the roof of the Halifax. Is that shadow?
Yes, it is still.
So even at this point, the entire face, or most of the face of the Halifax is still,
Would be in
In shadows.
In the shadows, yes.
because the roof is in the shadow.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, and at this point, the shadow from the Meridia is starting to come across the southwesterly corner.
That is correct. Of the Halifax, yes.
Now, what time is this?
That's 2 o'clock.
2 o'clock in the afternoon.
So 2 o'clock. There's a shadow being cast by the Versailles on the north.
Correct.
You know what building is there to the north? Is there a building there?
Yeah, that's a Galaxy, I think?
And it's casting a shadow onto the galaxy?
Yes.
Okay, so basically, all day, the Versailles is casting shadows somewhere in Westfield, is that correct?
Yes. And it is town.
Okay. And where is, what is the impact on our shadow at this time?
We're basically, at this time, we basically are covering the Halifax, we're in Halifax, in our shadow. So at 4:30, pretty much, our shadow is starting to leave the Halifax, so, it's still though on this part of the southerly portion of the Halifax. And about, I'd say about a quarter, or maybe a little less than a quarter on the, Versailles.
Okay. Now, what time is it showing no more shadows?
About 4:40.
And so you're saying that about approximately about a quarter of the face of the westerly side of Versailles is being cast a shadow upon by the proposed building?
That's correct.
Okay. And what time do we start casting a shadow on the facade?
3:40.
So at this point, we're casting a shadow on the facade for approximately 1 hour. The worst case scenario is maybe 25% of the building towards the end.
That's
Okay,
correct.
'cause that first is almost done.
That is correct. Consent?
Yeah, it comes next.
Again, this is basically the same sequence of events. Versailles cast shadows on our building, cast shadows on the Halifax, and toward somewhat in the middle of the day, the Halifax is somewhat in our shadow, and at the end of the day, basically our shadow covers maybe a little bit less than a quarter of the facade of the Versailles.
What time is it there?
3:40.
And that's when you start to cast a shadow on the Versailles. And how long is there a shadow on the Versailles? 4:35?
Roughly an hour, a little under an hour.
So now it's less than an hour.
Correct.
And what's the maximum, approximately, the maximum amount of the facade that's covered by a shadow?
So a little bit under a quarter, about a fifth maybe.
About a fifth. So worst case scenario, what's the increments in time when you fast forward through this? So if you were to fast forward, are they 5-minute increments, 6-minute increments? You know?
About 10-minute increments, a little less.
So the worst case scenario would last for about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you would like to add on December? January?
Yes.
Just walk us through January.
And see, good morning, Versailles, casting shadows on our building, on the Halifax. This is on 10 o'clock, the entire Halifax engulfed in Versailles shadow. And the facade, our facade is also in the shadows of the Versailles. Around,
So 11:50, there's still a shadow on the roof of the Halifax cast by the Versailles.
correct, so there'll still be some shadows from the Versailles and the facade, the eastern facade of the Halifax. And our building is casting our shadow on the south face of the Halifax as well.
That's 2 o'clock.
2 o'clock, our building is casting a shadow on the Halifax.
3:50.
3:50,
Stop, yes.
our building is leaving the shadow of the Halifax, but still somewhat covered, most of the south facade is still covered. And it's just beginning to touch the Versailles.
3, that's 3, 4.
From 4 o'clock.
4:50.
So around 4:50, so roughly about 50 minutes. There's a shadow on the Versailles from our building, and again, it's roughly about a fifth of the, casting shadow, about a fifth of that.
And again, since we're showing this in about 10-minute increments, then the worst case scenario, that maximum shadow exposure would be 10 minutes.
Yes, correct. February again, Versailles casting shadow on our building, cast shadow on the Halifax, completely engulfing the Halifax.
9:30.
9:30.
That's 10 o'clock almost.
10 o'clock, still on the Halifax.
Halifax, this is 11:40.
About 11:40, looks like it's off the Halifax roughly, and our building's starting to catch shadow on the Halifax.
Starts casting. And the results. And 3:36.
So around 3:30, it's starting to cast a shadow on the Versailles.
That's 5:30.
To about 5:30. And then the shadow that's being cast in the Versailles is roughly a little bit over about 25%, 30% possible.
March.
March.
March again, Versailles casting a shadow toward our building, that moves over to the Halifax. So
That's 3:40.
about 8:30. So the Halifax is in the shadow now until
About 10:50.
on 10:50, 11 o'clock.
And that's from the Versailles.
Correct. And then our building is casting a shadow starting now,
So 10:35.
10:35. And then starts casting a shadow on the Versailles,
And this is short.
2 o'clock.
I only ran into 6, so it's 40%.
So that's 6 o'clock, about 40% on the Versailles.
Okay. And we just have one more, April.
That's 6 a.m. 6 a.m.
So about 6 a.m. Versailles casting shadow on our building. Casting shadow on our building. Right on the roof, on our building, still on the building. There's still a shadow cast on our building up until 8:30 roughly. And then the Versailles casting shadow on the Halifax, roughly shortly thereafter, 8:30 on to
That's 10 o'clock.
10 o'clock. And then, right now,
That's 11:30.
so 11:30, our building starts casting a shadow on the Halifax. So about, from about 5:30, and at that time, it's roughly, our shadow is roughly about a third of the shadow on the Versailles.
Now, obviously, somebody reading a transcript is not watching this. So when you say that a shadow would start, let's say, for example, at 8:30 and it goes maybe to 4:30, a shadow is moving, so that's when the shadow first hits the building, or moves across and then exits the building on the other side. So there's a period of time where portions of the building are not in shadow.
Absolutely. That's right.
Is there anything else you'd like to add? Mr. Chairman, I have nothing further.
Let's start on this one. Mrs. April,
This is it.
could you just scroll back to 6 a.m. on April, so it's clean? Thank you. I'm sorry, could you bring it up a little bit so there's more sunlight cast on it?
That's 6 a.m. So
Bring it up, just that's perfect. Let's see, what time is it?
at 7 a.m.
Just to orient us to a different perspective. First of all, is this the same program you used to produce the other shadow study from May through September?
Yes, it is.
Okay, but the program obviously allows you to create or operate from different perspectives.
That's correct.
So if you wanted to, or if this board asked, you could produce the same perspective in order to better illustrate, without guessing, the amount of shadow on the southerly facade of the Halifax from May through September.
Yes.
Okay. You know, just to orient myself, because it's a different one, this roadway that runs from the lower right-hand side of it and then runs between the two, the side and the proposed building and then continues, that's Boulevard East running in a northerly direction.
That's correct.
Okay. And the Hudson River is somewhere on the top over here.
Yes.
Okay. So the white just was where it was cut out, because that's what you're focusing on. The white on the right side of the screen. Okay. If I look on what's on the left side of the screen, or roughly the northerly most area where Boulevard East traverses, what is this large depiction in the upper left-hand side. What is that?
I believe that's a swimming pool.
No, I'm sorry, I'm talking about this entire depiction that appears to cover the entire top and then an area to the west of Boulevard East. What is
I
that?
think that's the Galaxy.
Okay, now, is that then depicting that the galaxy physically runs as a bridge and covers above or runs above the roadway of Boulevard East?
No.
Okay, so your physical understanding of this area is that Boulevard East runs north of of 67th Street and then some, but in no way, shape, or form is covered physically by the physical structure that consists of the galaxy. Okay, if that's the case, then please explain to me why I can't see Boulevard East continuing north if there's no physical covering over Boulevard East where the galaxy is.
Well, because basically, if what we've done is we've modeled our buildings, so we have not put that in a 3D perspective. So it's basically where the picture was shot from the satellite, that's what it looks like, because it's basically, it's almost like a tower. You're actually looking at, this is the side of the building itself. So based on where the photograph was taken from the satellite, you're looking at the side of the building. Now, if we would have masked that building, then that building would have been higher and a bit more in perspective, straight across, and you would be able to see the road coming across.
So
it's
this,
just the angle of the picture, what was taken from the satellite, that creates that vision.
so at least with respect to the upper left-hand corner, this satellite picture does not represent reality as it exists on the ground today in North, at Gutenberg, West New York border.
No, it represents it.
It represents reality? Well, this in my, correct me if I'm wrong, I can't see the roadway where, at Boulevard East, where it passes the galaxy.
Correct.
And is that because you're telling me the angle of the satellite is such that it's up in the air somewhere, spinning around the Earth, and it views the galaxy from this perspective, and that's what the galaxy looks like?
That's where this shot was taken, that's what it looks like, yeah.
Is there, let me ask you this. Where's the Gutenberg border? Do you know?
Right around this street around here.
You're pointing what, 68th Street?
I believe so.
Okay, so north of 68th Street, at the intersection of Boulevard East and 68th Street, to the north of that is Gutenberg, right?
I think part of the south side of 68th Street is also part of Gutenberg.
Okay, even closer to the to the northerly side of the Halifax, is
Yeah.
where the town of Gutenberg, or
Yeah,
town or borough.
Gutenberg.
Guttenberg, I don't know if it's a town or a borough, but the municipality known as Guttenberg begins. Okay. From all the depictions we saw, and we'll go back over them in a moment, but from the depictions we saw and you viewed, your proposed building casts a shadow into Guttenberg, does it not?
At one point, I would probably think so, yeah.
Okay, well, we'll look at it, and just let's keep in mind your assumption that the municipal border between West New York and Guttenberg lies somewhere between the northerly facade of the Halifax and 68th Street. Okay, let's start in with, by the way, respecting the satellite's perspective, are there any other features on this site where the satellite affects what the shadows would be? In other words, your shadow study does not in any way, shape, or form address what shadow would be cast by a galaxy.
Correct.
Okay. And how tall is the galaxy?
I think that's 31 stories.
Pardon?
I think it's 31 stories.
Okay. Okay. Let's move on. Let's go right to the October study. We'll try to do it. Can you show me 6 a.m. where you did the study from 6 a.m. I think you said
6 p.m.
to 6 p.m. Thank you. At 6 a.m. Okay, want to just scroll quickly, slowly forward? Right, wait, back up a second. The shadow that I'm seeing right now, what time is that?
10:30.
Okay, the shadow that I'm seeing on the westerly side of the Halifax's southern facade, and just for reference that, I'm pointing to it right now, right? Westerly, westerly side of the southern facade. That's a shadow cast by the proposed Meridia building?
Yes.
Okay, and I'm gonna ask you this question, I'm gonna either refer back to it by reference many times. Isn't it the case that if the Meridia proposed building were set back further from 67th Street in a southerly direction, that the shadow cast by it onto the Halifax facade would be less than it is shown in your depiction right now?
If it's cut on which direction?
If the proposed Meridia building were set back further into the south from 67th Street. In other words, if this side did not come up as close to 67th
Yes.
Street as it did, but was set back, isn't it the case that the shadow cast on the Halifax northern facade, southern facade would be less?
Will be a little less, yes.
Would it be a little less, but you can't quantify that at all?
That's correct.
Okay, so you, again, I think we said this time, we'll establish it again, you cannot establish the relationship based upon the angles and the shadows cast between the height of the Meridia, the setback of the Meridia from its current position and any further distance,
Correct.
other than to tell me it's less.
Yes.
Okay, and is it also the case that the shadow cast by the Meridia proposal onto the Halifax facade would be, and we'll go through later today, but as a general statement, principle, isn't it the case that the shadow cast by the proposed Meridia onto the Halifax is greater based upon the proposal than it would be if the height of that Meridia were lowered by a certain amount?
Sure.
And so any lowering of the height of the Meridian would cause a casting of a lesser, smaller shadow, or less time on which the shadow would be cast on the south side of the Meridian. Any of those possibilities? Okay, but again, you're not in a position to quantify that based upon angles and based upon this, because all you've done is applied a shadow study program that you found on the internet, on Google somewhere, to some data, punched in some longitude and latitude, and used the date and produced this
I'm just
thing.
gonna object to the characterization.
I think he testified that it was a.
No, he testified it's a specific program.
Okay, I'm sorry,
It's
whatever,
somewhere located in the heavens.
I'm sorry.
We
Whatever,
actually have bias too.
right, well, I'll rephrase. Whatever program it was you testified to, your task here was to simply punch in longitude, latitude, punch in massing of those buildings, whatever the heights and the longitudes and the latitudes where they're located on the face of the planet, and through the program, magically out came the shadow study.
That's not merely, it's a lot of work being involved now.
Not suggesting it's not a lot of work, but I'm suggesting that's the work that's involved.
Yes.
Okay, and you're not in a position to extrapolate anything other than based upon those specific latitudes and longitudes and the specific massing you put in.
Correct.
Okay, and back at your office, you do not have data or other shadow studies showing what it would be if we narrowed the width of it off the northerly side by a certain amount, correct?
Correct.
And you do not have any data or any shadow studies showing what it would be if the height of the meridian were lowered and its effect on the shadows.
No, correct.
Okay, great. Let's go. This is October at 7:30 a.m. You said, sir?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. I'm
This
sorry.
is at 10 o'clock.
It's 10 o'clock, so the shadow that's cast right now on the southerly side of the Halifax is cast by your building, correct?
Anyway,
Okay,
that's part of it, mostly is the Versailles.
okay, that's all Versailles, and where is this Versailles?
No, that one little section there is.
Is Halifax, is it Meridian?
Meridian,
Okay,
correct.
let's go scroll slowly. So the shadow creeping across now is back there is
Yes, now the Versailles shadow on the south side is not anymore, and the shadow on the south side of the Halifax is from the Meridian.
and what time is that right now? What we're showing where there's no Versailles shadow and any shadow on the south side is all Meridian.
11%.
Thank you. And again, to reiterate my prior questions, same series of prior questions about narrowing or lowering it. The shadow shown would be less to some degree, which you can't quantify. If the dimensions and massing of the building were narrower, as we discussed, or no. And you understand my series of questions to be a little faster about it. When I say narrower or lower, I don't want to repeat everything, but I'm
No,
going to ask you to quantify, to answer yes or no. Thank you. Go ahead. Okay, right now, what's the time where the entire southerly end of the Halifax is covered by your building?
12:45.
12:45. And just, okay, and just for completeness' sake, at this point in time, the proposed Meridia building is casting a shadow into property in the town of Gothenburg, correct?
Looks like that.
Well, well, let's just be sure.
I can't tell because it could be just a shadow from the other side of the Halifax.
Well, well, wait, in any of these buildings, is the Halifax, is the
I don't think
Halifax?
that's, no, I don't think the shadow is being cast in Gunberg, that's from Halifax.
From the Halifax, okay, so there's no shadow being cast by the Meridian
That's
to
correct.
Halifax. Okay, because this model is showing shadows cast by the three mast buildings.
That's correct.
Okay, great, go ahead. Thank you. Right now, by the way, right now, we cannot tell the extent of the Meridia shadow because it merges with the, scroll forward,
Yes, we're doing Halifax.
scroll forward. At this moment, we cannot tell the extent of the Meridia building shadow, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, what time is that?
2:54.
Okay, continue, please. And but we do, wait, at 2:54, we do know that Meridia and Meridia alone is still casting a shadow over most of the southerly side of the house.
Yes.
Okay, great. Go. Keep going forward. Stop, please. What time is that? Okay, your program is not able to distinguish shadows, the length of the shadow of the Meridia at this point, correct?
That's correct.
So you're not able to give any determination as to the length of the shadow cast by the Meridia onto the ground, onto Boulevard East, right?
Nothing here, no.
Okay. Do you have that data back in your office by any chance?
Well, everything blends into the shadows of all the buildings there, so it's kind of difficult to see.
Wait.
Which is casting what?
Right. Are you telling me as an expert's opinion that at this moment, the Meridia does not cast a shadow of some distance somewhere north of it, independent of the Halifax and the Versailles?
No, it does.
Independent of it?
Yes.
Okay, so they merge somewhat, but there's still an independent shadow cast by Meridia of
Yes.
some length that you can't determine?
Sure.
Okay. Go ahead. Go ahead. Okay, that's the end of October. Go to November, please. I'm sorry, that's 6, go ahead. Right, stop. What time is that, please?
10:30.
Okay, fair to say then at 10:30 that the shadow cast by the Meridia casts onto the northerly facade of the Halifax, independent of the Versailles shadow? It's cast on the westerly side of it?
Well, they're kind of pulled together.
Okay, stop. Oh, go forward, go forward, go forward. Go forward. Yeah, stop.
No, yeah.
At that hour, what time is it?
11:30.
Excuse me?
11:30.
Okay, so that depicts right now no shadow cast on the facade, the southerly facade of the Halifax by Versailles, but a shadow cast by the building. And if I were to ask you the same series of questions about making more narrow off of 67th Street, the Meridia building, it would lessen the shadow on the Halifax to an undetermined amount, but would lessen it, correct? And the same thing if I asked you, if you lowered the height of the Meridia by any amount, it would lessen the shadow. And it's fair to say that the more you would lower it, the lesser the shadow would be cast, and the more you would bring the building, squeeze the building, or push the building off of the 67th Street, the lesser the shadow. Correct, okay. All right, go ahead. Go ahead. And once again, the rest of that depiction, you can't give me are you able to respond and tell me whether the Meridia casts a shadow into Guttenberg?
It does.
It does?
Yeah.
What time does the Meridia cast a shadow into Guttenberg?
It looks like from here, it probably starts right now, 11 a.m.
This is the November picture?
Yes.
So starting at 11 a.m., Meridia casts a shadow into Guttenberg?
Yes.
And how long does that continue? Wait, stop. At this hour, what's going on? What is Meridia doing in vis-a-vis Guttenberg?
Just casting a shadow onto 68th Street.
Okay. Go ahead. Keep scrolling forward, please. And fair to say that the shadow cast by Meridia is continuing at this hour?
Yes.
Okay, continuing throughout the rest of the day for a period of time?
Yes.
Okay.
Right, to the end of the day.
Thank you.
To the end of the day.
Let's go to December, please. Scroll back a little bit, please. Stop 10 minutes forward, please. Thank you. What time is that shown where the Versailles shadow has ceased falling on the Halifax's south side?
11:40.
11:40? Okay, and obviously the shadow from the proposed Meridia has commenced prior to 11:40, as evident by the scroll.
Yes.
Okay, go on. Continues. Stop, please. At that hour, except for the very, very southerly tip, the Versailles is casting a shadow on the Meridia. Excuse me, Meridia is casting a shadow on the south side of Halifax?
Yeah.
Okay, and same series of questions you'd answer the same way, vis-a-vis lowering the height or narrowing the building off northeast 67th Street side, correct?
Yes.
Vis-a-vis the shadow. Okay, and same thing here, in this juncture, the Meridia building is casting a shadow into Guttenberg.
Yes.
Thank you. By the way, can you just go back to that picture? I'm sorry. Scroll forward. What time is this?
2:30.
Scroll forward a little bit. Please, stop. Fair to say that at this hour, the Meridia building is casting a shadow onto the galaxy?
Could be.
I'm sorry?
It could. We can't tell because the galaxy has not been modeled, so you really can't.
Well, stop. Physically, right now, you see where I'm putting the edge of my pen?
Mhm.
Is that the edge, is that the leading edge, if you will, of the shadow from the
Yes.
Meridia as it moves in an easterly direction, because the sun is going to be setting in the west?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And at this moment in time, the edge of the shadow is now on the easterly side of Boulevard East, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And at this time also, that shadow is extending further north from my pen into what is depicted as by the satellite as the galaxy on its side.
You can't tell because of the fact that the galaxy has not been modeled. So you have to model it so you could actually show it on the other side.
What's the setback of the galaxy or its patio from Boulevard East? Put it this way, do you know if the galaxy property runs up to the edge of Boulevard East or within 6-7 feet of Boulevard East?
No, it has a setback.
Including land that consists of its front yard, its patio, its front?
Yes, it has a patio on it.
Okay, it has a patio in front. Okay, what time is this now? What time?
2 o'clock.
2 o'clock, okay. Run forward.
I'm sorry,
30
3 o'clock.
3 o'clock. Run forward 30 minutes for me. Okay, stop. Are you able to draw any conclusions about the effect of the Meridia shadow onto the Galaxy building at this hour?
Not conclusively, but I would say that at one point or another, the shadow of Meridia will cast a shadow on the Galaxy.
Okay, and again, the same series of questions I asked you, if you diminish the height of the Meridia, it would lessen the shadow, but you're not able to quantify how much. And if you brought the Meridia in, it would lessen the shadow being cast in the northerly direction out towards Gothenburg.
That's correct. And I would also say that the Halifax also would cast a shadow on the Galaxy also.
At this hour,
Maybe not at this hour, but at one point or another, we'll do it also.
I could care less about what the Halifax building is doing.
Okay.
You may care about it, I could care less. I care only.
Objection, he's being
No,
argumentative,
no,
ask a question.
Yeah, you
I'll move on, okay, sorry, withdrawn. Let's move forward to, this is December 4, 3:30, roughly?
304.
Okay, I'm sorry,
304.
304.
3:04. Anybody know what time the sun sets in Gothenburg on December 21st of any year? Do you know?
No.
Would it surprise you if I told you the sun sets on December 21st at about 4:19?
Good. 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 It could be.
Fair, about
Could be.
between 4:19 and 4:26,
Yeah,
roughly on
could be.
about December 21st? Okay. Okay, thank you. Let's move forward to the next month. January, that would usually show me December. Thank you. And while you're teeing it up, I'll ask you one other question I asked last time. The comment I made last time about the continuum, and you're just showing specific points during the calendar year, each 21st of the month for these several months. But what the conclusions we would draw as of the, say, December 21st, and now we're going to talk about January 21st, we would be drawing similar, albeit slightly different conclusions about the extent of the shadow for the continuum of days between December 22nd and January 20th.
That's right.
Meaning the shadows might shift a little bit, but if you showed me or the board any of those days in between, we'd have similar depictions, albeit slightly different based upon the angle of the sun between December 21st and January 21st.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
What month is this?
January.
January.
Stop. Back up a second, please. Right, okay, no, I'd like you to show me when, stop, okay. What is the time shown now where the Meridia shadow is cast on almost the entirety of the south?
113.
113. And by the way, I know you did it the last time, you had a grid you showed for beginning and end time. Have you produced a similar grid?
No, we did not.
Oh, okay. So if we just scroll back, can you tell me when the shadow by the Meridia begins on Halifax?
Can't tell because
Can't tell 'cause it
both
overlaps.
together with the
Hold on,
Versailles.
I can't tell what.
You can't tell when it begins because it's overlapping with the Versailles, the shadow that the Versailles is doing on the Halifax.
Let's just get a time as to when there's no Versailles shadow and it's only a shadow on the Meridian. By the Meridian.
A little bit after.
A little bit after that, and what time is that? Right there. What time is that? Okay, 11:53 it starts. Now there's no shadow cast. The only shadow cast on Halifax is by Meridian.
On the south side.
On the south side of the Halifax. Okay, continue scroll, please. So for the rest of that's 6 p.m.?
Yes.
So on January 21st, from 11:21 through the rest of the day, the Meridia casts a shadow on the Halifax south facade, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, and if I asked you the same series of questions about the shadow cast by the Meridia building into Gothenburg and as far as the Galaxy on January 21st, would your answers be roughly the same as you gave me for December 21st?
Yep.
And that means for all the days in between, your answers would be the same, give or take, slight variations because of the angle of the sun. Okay. Okay, let's go forward, please. Thank you. what time is that, please?
40.
11:40. So this depicts a time at which the Versailles no longer casts any shadow on the south side of the Halifax, and the shadow shown on the south side of the Halifax is a function solely of the meridian, correct?
Yes.
And that situation continues for the rest of the day.
That is correct.
And I'm sorry, the last time you're showing, this depiction is roughly about 10 minutes to 6?
This is 5:30 and sunset's at around 5:40.
Okay. All right, so the depiction is that just before sunset, there's still shadow on the easterly side of the south side. Okay, and I've asked you the same series of questions about lowering the height of the meridian. You've answered similarly with respect to the effect on the shadows, lessening the shadows. And if I asked you about pulling it in from its 67th Street side, you answered the same as you answered before, correct? Yes? And likewise, you give me the same response, is it not the case, with respect to the casting of shadows into Guttenberg and into Guttenberg, correct?
Yeah.
And also the same answer with regard to some, but you can't quantify the degree of shadow being cast during this 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. depiction onto the galaxy, correct?
That is correct.
Thank you. Okay, great, thank you. March. By the way, before we go specifically, by the way, do you know whether the depiction on September 21 or 22, which would be the autumnal equinox, is identical to the depiction on March 21 or 22, which would be the spring equinox?
It should be.
Should be. Okay, this is what hour on March 21st, please?
9:45.
9:45, okay, and this is still showing shadow cast by Versailles, correct?
Correct.
Okay, scroll forward. At this hour, Versailles shadow stops being cast on the south, on the southerly side of the Halifax, correct? And the shadow cast at this is 9:45?
This is 11:11.
11:11, okay. Scroll, so starting at 11:11, there's no shadow cast except by the meridian on the south side of the Halifax. Thank you, go forward, forward. What hour is that, please?
1:30.
Thank you. Go forward, please. Continues to the end. Okay, and I can ask you the same series of questions I just did about the height of the meridian, vis-a-vis the length of the shadow, you answered as you did before.
Yes.
I asked you the same series of questions about pulling in the building, narrowing the building off the 67th Street side and its effect on the meridian building, its effect on the shadows, you answered the same as before. And if I asked you about the casting of shadows at this time by the Meridian building onto Guttenberg, you answered as you did before,
Yes.
correct? So that namely there is some shadow, but you can't quantify it exactly depicted, and similar with the galaxy, same set of answers.
That's
Okay,
correct.
great. Okay. Last one, March, please. Thank you.
April.
I'm sorry, April. What time is it? Wait, back up a second. Okay, what time is that?
12:48.
Excuse me?
12:48.
Okay, so 12:48, the southerly side of the Halifax, it appears almost to the roof, not quite, is in the shadow cast by the meridian,
That's correct.
proposed meridian. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. Stop, stop. What time is that, please?
2:30.
Okay, that depicts, does it not, the shadow cast by the meridian proposed building in a easterly, more or less easterly direction, as it is about to put the front yard of the Versailles into shadow, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And this is, I'm sorry, 2:45 on April 21st?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, scroll forward, please. So stop. At this hour, what is the hour right now?
3:08.
3:08. So at it's 3:08 in the afternoon, this slide or this piece of the study depicts that the entire front yard, of the Versailles on the, what appears to be the northerly half is in the shadow cast by the proposed building.
Yes.
Okay, go on. What time is that, please?
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock. Okay, so 5 o'clock on the 21st, being roughly about 3/4 of the front area of the Versailles is in, on the ground, front ground is in the shadow cast by the Meridia building? Okay, and that's continuing, enlarging from the earlier hour. And, go on. Okay, when we hit 6 PM at some point?
That's 6 p.m.
Okay, again, if I ask you the same series of questions about the shadows, with regard to lower, a shorter building and the lessening effect on the Halifax facade, the answers you did before. And if I ask you the same series of questions about pulling in the northerly facade of the building, the answers you did before.
Yes.
And if I ask you the same series of questions about when the shadows possibly being cast in the Button building, the answers you did before.
Yes.
Now, let me ask you here. If you lowered the building, isn't it the case that the degree or the length of the shadow cast onto the front yard of the Versailles might be less than what is shown on what you've depicted with the proposed building and its height?
On the front of the Versailles, yes.
And is it not the case that if you lowered the building, the degree and length of time that a shadow is cast on the front facade, not the ground area, that was what my question before was, but on the front facade would be less than what it is shown with your proposed building height?
Yes.
Okay, and if you set back, excuse me, set back from Boulevard East, your building, the proposed building, by some few feet, anywhere from 0 to 15 feet, is it not a fact that the extent of the shadow being cast into the front ground of the platform, if you will, that sits in front of the Versailles, set back from the street, would be lessened by some amount, but correct?
Yes.
But that's an amount you're not able to quantify based on this study.
That's correct.
Okay, and finally, similarly, the shadow cast onto the westerly facade of the Versailles, the westerly wall the western wall of the facade, would be diminished if the height of the Versailles proposed meridian were less than it was proposed. And finally, that similarly the shadow cast onto the western wall of the Versailles would be commensurately less by some amount if the front setback facing Boulevard East were brought in for the proposed building.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Now, I take it you have not done any modeling back in your office of the effect or the casting of the shadows if the building is lowered, correct? With regard to the effect on Versailles.
Yeah.
Either the ground in front of the Versailles or the western wall of Versailles, correct?
We have not.
And you have not done any studies and any data with regard to the effect on the ground of the Versailles if the front of the building were brought in by some amount of setback?
We have not.
And you have not done and have no data, you can't answer me with regard to how much, I'm sorry, right there. You've done no study and have no data to show how much less on the western wall of the Versailles the shadow would be if this building was set back by some amount?
We have not.
Mr. Cantor,
Yes.
it's not mandatory you ask another question, I just want to put it
Thank you.
out. It's not one of the rules.
Thank you. Mr. Aracibia, are you aware of the physical amenities that lie on the platform in front of the Versailles building?
No.
Thank you. I don't have any further questions. Thank you.
And you will now take a 10-minute break.
Thank
I understand, but I have
Okay, all board members are here, so we're gonna continue the hearing. Mr. Kantrowitz?
Yes, sir. I'm ready to go.
And where are you going?
I think I'm concluded with Mr.
You did, Mr. Arcivia regarding the extended months in the shadow study.
Yeah, and I think.
So now we,
I'm sorry, you asked me where I was going. I think we were gonna come back and.
Mr. Kerwood?
Mr. Kerwood, the transcript references, and then go on to Mr. Sweat.
Right. Quite frankly, I think that's just, and then the only thing you have after that is Mr. McDonough.
Yes, and he's not here.
Right, so that's really the best we can do tonight anyway.
Okay.
Mr. Alonso, you've gotten the materials that you need.
I received a copy of the transcript from July 26, 2012.
So the answer to my question is yes.
The question was what I need. I don't know if I need this. I'll tell you when I received.
Okay, then after the questions, you want to give it back? I mean, if you don't need it, there's no sense in keeping it, right? I don't want to clutter up your desk. Oh, okay.
I'll wrap it up for Christmas
Oh,
for my
okay.
son.
Please continue, Mr. Kid.
Yes, excuse me. Mr. Paraboy, I think I produced for council a copy of the transcript of this board hearing on July 26, 2012, in the matter of Meridian Boulevard. You recall testifying about 2 years and 3 months ago in front of the board, just being here and giving testimony?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you recall at the time that that the proposal was similar but only occupied lots 9 and 10, not 11. And you were probably here a lot, so you know that lot 11 is Ms. Dato's house
Yes.
lot. Okay. Now, at the time, you gave testimony, at that time, you gave testimony about traffic and circulation, and you produced a report with traffic counts and so forth.
Yes.
During the July 26th hearing, there came a point when you were asked a few questions, I think, by the chairman and by then board consultant, Mr. Joseph Lake. You have a recollection? If not, I'll refer you to page 106 of it. I'm sorry, 105 of the transcript. And at that point, I want to read along with it, just for your council's reference. At page 105, line 22, the chairman said to you, said to the assembly, let's go back. Does the board have any questions regarding traffic? Not necessarily parking, because the architect can testify as to parking, but regarding the traffic or the traffic circulations or the traffic impact of the cars coming onto the street, which he's already testified to. Does the board have any other questions regarding that? I don't see anybody raising their hand. Does our planner have any other questions regarding that? Okay? And I don't know, are you holding a copy of the transcript? Maybe you can give him a copy of the transcript and he can read along.
No, no way.
Excuse me?
You don't way.
I'll show him this.
Why don't you stand next to him?
That's fine. That's fine. Oh, go ahead. Yeah. Okay. Have a look at what I just read, what the chairman said, starting at 105, line 22, and then 12. Okay? Did I read that correctly in terms of what the chairman spoke at that moment?
Yes.
Okay. And starting on line 106, page 106, line 7, when asked, does our planner have any questions, and Mr. Layton, who at the time was the board's planner, said, and I quote, I would like to hear the traffic expert talk about the steepness of that ramp. Does our attorney have any questions? And did I read that correctly?
Yes.
And then Mr. Karzewski answered, I do not. I guess that was the planning board's chairman, attorney at the time, right there. At page 106, line 11, the chairman then resumes, does our engineer have any? Excuse me, and Mr. Lemanowitz, who was the board's engineer at the time, says, no, Mr. Chairman, I am done. Did I read that correctly so far?
Yes.
And then on page, line 15, the chairman continued, would you come forward? I guess, Mr. Arcivia, we can let you go for tonight. And the witness says, no shadow study. I don't know who that was, and then the chairman continues on line 19. Chairman Blaine, not tonight, I would expect you're going to have questions on that. Did I read that correctly? Now, starting on line 21 at 106, the chairman then continues. The question related to, I guess, Mr. Arcebia's testimony regarding the ramp and the gauge of the ramp of the slope. I guess our planner would like to hear you testify as to that. And then did I read that correctly, what the chairman said? And then line 25 states your name and says, having previously been sworn by the notary, testifies further as follows. And take it just for transcripts, that that's a note that the reporter stuck in to identify what's going on in the proceedings. Correct? And I read that correctly so far. Okay. At page 107.3, line 3, you then testify, and I quote, I don't design parking garages in terms of different levels. That is really not my area of expertise. I read that correctly so far?
Yes.
And then you continue, the slopes, that would be a building permit issue. I look at the two-dimensional plan, the geometric plan. As far as the ramp, it's not really something that is in my area of expertise, correct?
Yes.
Read that correctly? Now, Mr. Layton then continued to page 107, line 10. What about roads? Do you design the roads? In other words, what is the maximum slope permitted on a roadway, local roadway? And you answered, I do not know. We don't design local roads. I do traffic impact studies and analyze the parking. I read that correctly?
Yes.
Then Chairman Blaine at line 16 continued, thank you for your attempt to be helpful. Let me just direct my comment to our planner. We had a state-required engineer as to what 20% slope will mean, may or may not mean, and things like that. That, to me, is all part of the consideration, and also the response by the applicant to those comments. And that is all part of the consideration that this board takes into effect when weighing whether, in fact, the slope is satisfactory to the board, which should be
Whether or not.
whether or not, excuse me, whether or not
The slope or something?
whether, when weighing whether, in fact, the slope is satisfactory to the board, or should be part of the board's judgment, as should every aspect of this development. Okay? And I'm going to, did I read that correctly so far? I'm going to skip a couple, I'm sorry, I'll finish what the chairman said. Now I'm reading on 108 to line 2. That is just one of them. I mean, the applicant is sitting there and saying this is satisfactory. Engineer, I don't think it is satisfactory to him. It's up to the board to determine what type of weight to give to each one. I read that correctly so far?
Yes.
Okay. Then Mr. Layton, the planner, continues, I thought that the traffic engineer might be familiar. And his quotation ends. I read that correctly too?
Yes.
And then Chairman Blaine speaks and says, quote, the traffic engineer just told you I think he can be of no help in this regard, unquote. I read that from lines 9 to 11?
Yes.
Okay, and then the witness, which I guess is you, and I can offer a little bit of help. I am familiar with the publications that your engineer referred to. They're generally for public parking lots. Those standards wouldn't necessarily hold in this case, but again, I am not, and you're cut off. Okay? Read that correctly?
Yes.
Okay, and you have no reason to doubt that this is anything but a true, correct transcript of what you said that night?
No, I said the same thing tonight. I don't do design parking garages. I analyze circulation and the way the vehicles travel through the garages. I don't design them.
Okay, and you said that it's all an issue of a building permit as far as whether it's going to happen or not.
Building code.
Building permit. You said-
a typo. It looks like, it says building permit. I would assume it's a building code, but either way.
Okay. Okay, I have nothing further, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any redirect, Mr. Alonso?
No,
I saw you stand up, so I certainly didn't want
I
to,
don't want to read the rest of the transcript, so no. I'm good.
do you want to reserve your, do you want to read the rest of the transcript and reserve your right for December 1st?
No, I don't think there's any need.
Okay.
Thank
I just wanted to give you every opportunity that's available.
Thank you.
Mr. Kantrowitz, I believe we have two more witnesses that you would like to cross-examine. One is Mr. Swade, who's here, and the other is Mr. McDonough, who is not here.
Yeah,
So I guess we know which one you're gonna cross tonight.
yes, Mr. Swett. Hi, Mr. Swett, good evening, how are you?
Good.
How are you? I'm well.
Mr. Swade will continue you under oath.
I think he was.
Yeah. And we're just continuing it because you're now cross-examining.
Mr. Swed, your position with the Capo Gagli Group, property group is what? Chief Operating Officer?
Chief Operating Officer.
And,
Chief Operating Officer.
and what precisely are you, strike that, you have been here at every hearing, all, completely through all the hearings, you've heard all the testimony on this application so far?
Correct. I oversee operations from the acquisition through construction.
Okay, which includes, watching and seeing and being a part of the planning board application, municipal board application process. I don't remember this, and I'm sorry, were you, in that position, 2 years ago when the first Meridia application was made?
No.
You are aware of the are you aware of the differences between the two applications?
Yes.
Okay, and the difference is that you acquired what I'll colloquially call Lot 11 or the Dado property, or at least you have an option to purchase. So you have some interest in it sufficient to present to the board an application including that property, correct?
Yes.
The application form indicated that she consents to your making this application on this
Yes.
property. Are you at liberty to advise us when that contract was entered into, giving you an interest? I'll strike that. I'll strike that. I'll do it much easier. I'll strike that much easier. Are you aware that an application was filed probably around January, February, March or April that did not include this property? The board's files. Initially, another application was filed that did not include the Dado property for part of this development application.
For the auto body.
Yes, the order,
Yes.
yeah, okay.
Yes.
And are you aware that at some point after roughly March or April of 2014, Meridia, La Boulevard filed what I'll term a revised application that included the Dado Lot 11?
Yes.
So fair to say that at some point after April of 2014, Meridia LLC or the parent company acquired an interest in the Dado property sufficient to represent to the board that it had Ms. Dado's consent to file an application with that property.
Yes.
Oh. This is obvious, but I'll put it in the record. The acquisition of that property enlarged your property, the property by the size of the Dado property, correct?
Yes.
And basically, not basically, but it certainly widened the frontage along 67th, along Boulevard East, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And in widening it, strike that, and the drawings themselves would dictate the width of the Dado property. They would show the width, Lot 11 along Boulevard East.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Now, you said you're the chief operating officer of, Campo Properties Group?
Yes.
Okay. Let me ask you, did I pronounce that name correctly? I hate pronouncing people's names wrong, so
Sure.
articulate the name for me.
Capadagli.
Capadagli? Okay. Does Capadagli Properties maintain a website under meridialiving.com?
Yes.
Okay. And I showed Mr. Aracibia a photograph last time for the groundbreaking, I think, of the opening of the Downbrook property that Meridia was developing in Brownbrook.
Yes.
Do you recall that? You were in that photograph.
Yes.
You're familiar with the operations. Now, I had the pleasure of going onto the website, the Meridia Living website. You recognize this picture? I'll give your council one as well.
Don't ask them.
Don't ask anything yet, just have a look at it. Okay? Yes, if you could, Mr. Swett, take just a moment or two to familiarize yourself with that piece of paper in front of you, 2 sheets of paper. Recognize that?
Yes.
As a COO, you occasionally look at either contract out to have a web design or design it in-house, correct?
Yes.
And I assume as a COO, you occasionally or more frequently examine the web page for its contents, for the information being provided to the general public?
In reality, no.
You don't?
No. This website is maintained by our asset management division,
Mm-hmm.
which is a different structure, ICO operations from acquisition through construction. At that point, hand it off to property management to market it, lease it, manage the property.
Who informs asset management of the assets of the, of Capital Dagby properties?
Well, the construction and development side.
Okay. But you're not involved with construction development, because you only go through
Yes.
construction? You are,
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
Okay, so you interact with them?
Yes.
Okay, fine. Let me show you. The first page shows, has a title on it that says "Coming Soon." You see that?
Yes.
And that represents properties that are coming soon or that are soon to be developed by the Capadaggy Properties Group, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, let me show you the front page. You see the one at the bottom that says Meridia Meralto, West New York, New Jersey? You see that at the bottom?
Yes.
That's Meridia Park that everybody's been talking about during the course of the hearing, correct?
No.
No, it's a different property. Okay?
Correct.
Okay, has that been developed yet?
No.
Is that been approved by the planning board of West New York?
No.
Has it been approved by the zoning board of West New York?
No.
Has an application for Meridia Meralto been filed with any municipal board in West New York?
Can I consult with my attorney?
If you can answer the question, tell me, can you answer the question?
I think I need to consult my attorney to see if the application we submitted is part of the process.
Well, how about you do this? How about if you let your
You know what,
attorney...
let me answer that. I would say no.
No. So no applications yet been
Correct.
filed from Meridia Meralto. And are you familiar with the application process?
Yes.
Generally familiar. You're not a lawyer, you're not trained as a lawyer, are you?
No. I act like one, but
Do you know whether the Meridia Meralto project requires board approval beyond site plan approval?
yes.
Okay, so the Meridia Meralto project requires certain variances besides simply site plan approval?
And its current zoning, yes.
Let me flip you to the second page. Okay, these are properties that are coming soon, correct? Am I correct?
Yes.
What's on the webpage? Look at the last property. Could you tell the board what the last property shown on the coming soon list of Meridia Living or Capadagly properties is?
Meridia Boulevard.
And what's the address in Meridia Boulevard?
6615 Boulevard East, Gutenberg, New Jersey.
Okay, and there's a picture shown there too, right?
Yes.
Okay, and that picture depicts a building with balconies jutting forward in the front of it on the front left and right sides of the building?
Yes.
Just for completeness sake, is there a copyright 2013 Meridia Living 6035 Park Avenue tag on the right side of that page?
Yes.
And again, you're the chief operating officer of Capadagly Properties, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. Now, let me ask you something else, if you could help me out. On Meridia Park Avenue, that was mentioned a while back. I think Mr. McDonough, you were asked a few questions about, I'm going to say, the services, the way it operates, you know, the plumbing, when someone has a plumbing pole in the middle. You remember being asked a few questions about Meridia Park Avenue? Now, have you ever looked at plans? You know what, you look at these design plans when the process goes on?
Yes.
Okay. You're not a licensed planner, are you?
No.
And you're not a licensed engineer?
I am a licensed engineer.
You are a licensed engineer?
Yes.
Oh, okay, good. So, at some point in your career as an engineer, did you have reason to look at, what field of engineering?
civil engineer.
Okay, so at some point in your career, is it, there's a chance to look at plans such as the kind that were submitted for ultimate signature by the zoning board?
Yes,
Fair to say that you can read plans, at least in a rudimentary fashion?
yes,
Okay. You were here for Mr. Arecibia's testimony, were you not, the other night?
yes.
And I asked him a bunch of hypotheticals about a hypothetical unit 2B, as I call it. Okay? Now, you've talked about Meridia Park Avenue, correct?
I'm just gonna object, in terms of hypothetical questions, it's proper for an expert witness. Mr. Sweat has not been offered as an expert witness.
Yeah, absolutely correct, which is why I'm gonna show him what I'm gonna ask him about. And to establish a foundation that he can talk about what I'm about to show him.
And he's also not proffered as an architect or as an engineer or anything else. He may be licensed, but he's not proffered as an expert witness. He's only here as the chief operating officer.
Yes, but he just said that he has an engineering background and has read plans and can read plans.
Our attorney's advising that the objection by Mr. Alonso should be sustained.
Let me show you the document, Mr. Alonso, have a look, see. Mr. Sweat, have you ever seen that document before? I'm sorry, excuse me, sorry, I'm sorry, you're right, sorry.
Irrespective, I think the same line of question, objection goes to these plans, these plans from Meridia Park Avenue.
May I speak?
Sure.
He is the COO of Capital Properties.
Correct.
He's talked about the operation of the Meridia Park Avenue. I'm proffering, and I would like to ask him if he can answer questions about the physical building at Meridia Park Avenue. It's part of what he says his job is. He's talked about how the building operates, what goes on there. His planner has talked about relying on Meridia Park Avenue to draw conclusions about this proposed project. It's factual questions about it. He can either answer them or not answer them. I'm not asking expertise, I'm asking some basic factual questions. For all I know, he may say, I don't know, I can't do that. In which case, we'll know what he does and doesn't know. But it's certainly within the ambit of the testimony, when he's testified about the physical nature and drawn conclusions and offered testimony to this board to draw conclusions about this site.
No, it's not, that's a mischaracterization of what Mr. Sweat said. Mr. Sweat said he follows it through the development phase. He wants to ask questions about the operation of the units. He hands it off to different units that are within the company.
Then he'll answer that. And then he'll say he doesn't know.
But then why, how is it relevant you're asking questions about something he doesn't know?
Well, we
It's
don't
just
know
wasting
that,
time.
we don't know that he doesn't know it. You're saying he doesn't know it. Let's ask him the questions.
He testified as to the scope of his employment, and he's the chief operating officer, and he deals it from acquisition through the development phase. He wants to ask him questions about the operation once it's constructed.
Mr. Swed, are you in charge of Meridia Park Avenue, the operation of Meridia Park Avenue?
No,
Do you have a relationship at this moment with the operation of Meridia Park Avenue?
what do you mean, relationship?
A relationship in the sense of overseeing its operation on a daily basis, or other than having whoever is in charge of the operation report to you?
No, there's a counterpart in the property management group.
What does that mean? What do you mean counterpart in the
There
park?
is a individual who oversees that operation.
Who oversees Meridia Park Avenue?
Correct.
Okay, is he above you or below you or?
No, it's
Equal?
Equal.
Okay.
Um, Chairman, he's just told you that the operations he has no involvement with. And yet, his prior testimony was that he will explain, and did explain, what the procedure is in operating the Meridia Park when there is a complaint made by a tenant about plumbing, when there's a complaint made about something else, when there is a suggestion about how much or how little parking there is. So it's either he does know or he doesn't know. Either his testimony can be considered and serve as a foundation for the comments and opinions Mr. McDonough offered, in which case I can ask him what I want to ask him about Meridia Park, including going back to the plans, or he can't, in which case all of the testimony he gave and all of Mr. McDonough's testimony, relying on that testimony to draw conclusions about the operation at Meridia, must all be considered without foundation and stricken.
At Meridia Park Avenue.
I'm sorry, all of the testimony given about Meridia Park Avenue, which then, on that basis, Mr. McDonough, during his testimony, extrapolated to draw conclusions about Meridia and the Boulevard. All of that testimony must be stricken as without foundation. It's one or the other. It's one or the other.
Number one, we don't need to make a determination that later, when the board is considering this, the board can consider what testimony and what.
I understand.
Right now.
Yeah.
You may just want to let.
Is there number two?
No, that's it.
Number two is that the strict rules of evidence do not apply in these proceedings, and I think that's what he's
I
arguing
understand.
from the
I
rules of
understand.
evidence.
I understand. And Mr. Kantrowitz knows that also.
Yes, sir.
Right.
He knows that the board can consider and give weight to layman's testimony and expert's testimony. I don't want to say as it chooses, but certainly there's a certain amount of latitude in the project judicial.
And the questions that were asked, that he's referring to, were all general term type questions. There weren't specific questions with respect to the operation of the.
No, I'll tell you, the problem I'm having, quite frankly, is having Mr. Swade testify as to plans and apartment parameters and things like that at Meridia Park Avenue, when he's only been proposed as a COO.
But, Mr. Chairman, when he was described as COO, he said his role is from acquisition through construction. That continuum runs through planning approval based upon plans, resulting in signature of those plans.
Well, Mr. Swade, did you review these plans, or have you reviewed these plans?
Yes.
You have.
Just these plans, are those the Park Avenue
I'm
plans?
sorry, we're talking about the Park Avenue plans.
Yes.
There you go.
You've reviewed the Park Avenue plans.
Yes.
Not Meridia Boulevard, but Park Avenue.
Yes.
Then I'll allow the questions.
Okay, come on over.
Now, this is not as an expert.
No. Factual,
Right.
just factual. Mr. Swift, let me show you plans that were signed on January 20, I'm sorry, I'm looking up on the upper right-hand side, I'm looking at plans for the record that bear the word Meridia Park Avenue, West New York, blocks 4, 5, 6, 6.01, 16, and 17, block number 43, West New York. You see that up on the right-hand side?
Yes.
And they're done by an entity called Mystery Design. See that?
Yes.
And just below that, there's a plate block with 3 signatures. Just below that, there's a plate block with 3 signatures, and the signatures in order are Kenneth Blaine, Chairman, Maria Varela, Secretary, and Thomas N. Cumming. I'm having trouble making that out, but it looks like C something. Jimenez. I'm sorry, Lemanowitz. Pardon, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Engineer. See that?
Yes.
And they're dated with the signature January 26, 2012, correct? Is that correct?
Did you see that?
The signature on the plate block.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Let me show you, that was plate block A2.000, A2000, correct? See that?
Yes.
Okay. And you just testified that you've seen these plans before, right?
Yes.
Okay. Let me show you a page marked A2.03. See that?
Yes.
Okay. And let me direct your attention to the bottom of it, Unit 317, that's labeled as Unit 2B2. See that?
Yes.
And 2B2 represents a standard type of unit, design or size or layout for that floor, correct?
Yes,
Okay, and right next to it to the right is something called Unit 2B. See that?
yes,
Okay, now, the number in there happens to say 215, correct?
yes,
Every other unit that has a specific floor number says 313, 311, and so forth, correct?
yes,
And the language at the bottom of sheet A 2.03 says third floor plan, correct?
yes.
So, just as a factual matter, if you can, and if you can't, I understand that, would it be fair to conclude that the number 215 really is intended to have been 315 and may have just resulted in a typo on that page?
Objection.
If he can answer, it's a simple
Well,
question.
that's a drafting question, he didn't have to plan.
It's not only that, the only problem is he's not an expert.
I understand, which is why I'm asking him if he can, as a
Right.
person
It's a
of
straight-
knowledge, can draw a conclusion about a piece of, a label on a plan. That's
As,
all.
as to a large degree a layperson regarding in this area, can you answer the question?
Yes.
Okay, do you have any answer as to whether that might have been mislabeled as 215 and really should be 315?
Should be 315.
Okay, and 315 represents unit number 315 in the Meridian Park, correct?
Yes,
Third floor of the building, correct?
yes.
Okay, now, have a look if you would. Tell me how in your, and we went through this, but let's go through it again. If you walk in from the corridor off the elevator, you walk into unit 2B, correct?
Yes,
Okay, and just for the sake, that's the door opening off the corridor where my pinky is, and you kind of walk in, right?
yes,
Okay, the door immediately to your left as you walk in, there's a door, correct?
yes,
And into the door you walk, and that's a room, right?
yes,
Okay. Now, if you walk further, now, if you walk further, I'm sorry, as you walk into unit, what we described as unit 215, directly opposite that door, and there is a door shown, correct?
yes,
Okay, directly opposite that door is an area that appears to be a kitchen, correct?
yes,
Okay, and as you continue further in to the apartment, you continue further down to the right side, it looks like a dining room area because there's a depiction of what appears to be a table with 4 chairs on it, correct?
yes,
Okay, and just above that, next to the kitchen on the opposite side of the kitchen counter, there appear to be two seats, which would appear to be seats for a counter in the kitchen.
yes,
Okay, and again, we're talking about unit 315, not unit 215, correct?
yes,
Now, we continue further down, you continue further into the unit, to the far side of the unit, farthest from the entry. On the left side, on the right side, there's some sort of open sitting area, it might be a living area or something like that, correct?
yes,
Okay, and opposite that living area, and the farthest in from the door of the unit is a door that leads into another room, correct?
yes,
And is it fair, would it be fair to depict that, that room as a bedroom?
yes,
And fair to depict that bedroom as having a large walk-in closet next to it?
yes,
Okay. And beyond that, there's a bathroom, correct?
yes.
Can you tell whether that bathroom is accessible through the closet or only accessible through the hallway or the corridors that you have when you walk into the apartment?
It's accessible through the corridor of the apartment or through the corridor of the walking center.
Okay, so you get there both ways. Okay. Now, if you know, I don't know, if you do, you do, if you don't, you don't. Do you know whether this unit is depicted on these plans as a one-bedroom or as a two-bedroom unit? If you know.
Depicted as a two-bedroom.
Two-bedroom unit, okay. So, it's a two-bedroom unit. Does the first bedroom I spoke about as you walked in off the corridor have any direct, appurtenance to either a outside window or a skylight?
No,
Okay. However, the bedroom on the far end does have a appurtenance to the window, correct?
yes,
Now, it's also the case that this is marketed as a two-bedroom, one-bathroom home in West New York on Meridia Marketing, correct?
yes.
Now, if you're able to, and if you can, you can, if you can't, you can. Can you show me on the third floor, do you see the unit count up there? On the new submission? See where it says unit count, new submission?
Yes.
Okay. Can you show, I'm looking at the line that says third floor. Can you show me on the third floor which are the two one-bedroom units that are depicted on that unit count on this drawing? No, the two, I'm sorry, the third floor has, across it has 5 columns, correct? The first column is under something called one bedroom, correct? And it shows that there are 2 one-bedrooms on the third floor.
Yes.
It shows that there are 9 one-bedrooms with office on the third floor.
Yes.
And it shows that there are 21 two-bedrooms on the third floor, correct?
Yes.
And it shows that there are 0 two-bedrooms with office on the third floor.
Yes.
And then finally, the 5th column all the way over just lists amenities, and those are amenities that are floor one, correct? Oh, are you able, looking at this A 2.03, are you able to point out to me which units by number are the 2 one-bedroom units you talked about that are depicted in the first column on this?
Yes.
Okay, could you identify them by number, please? Great. I'm sorry?
301.
Unit 301 is a one-bedroom? No, I'm asking very now. I'm asking you, show me the 2 one-bedrooms on the third floor. These are the one-bedrooms without the office. Show me the two one-bedrooms without the office.
Unit 304.
No, 304 is a one-bedroom without office.
No, I'm sorry.
Unit 329.
The 329 is one of the 2 one-bedrooms without office.
Yes.
Okay?
Unit 310.
Unit 310 is the second one-bedroom without office. Okay? And you show me, please, now, the 9.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Kantrowitz, where are you going with this?
Credibility?
Well,
who's credible?
what is your question? I don't, where's your, how does your question read? Are you trying to see whether or not he can read the
No,
plan?
no, not at all.
Well, then
I'll make it proper. They are proffering unit 315 as a luxury 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom unit.
Right.
And I'm trying to determine whether in fact It's represented on plans that you sign
Okay.
as a
So why,
two-bedroom or as a one-bedroom with
okay,
office.
so why don't we ask him to show us the 2 bedrooms on the 3rd floor?
Okay, well, get into that.
But we can jump to that,
Okay, well,
because if he can show us whatever the number is, then that eliminates 315.
well, that,
If he can't show us, then it doesn't eliminate 315.
well, except for one thing. The one thing is, I want to eliminate his overlooking any of the other units that I think may be two-bedroom, and uses and places this one as a two-bedroom.
Mr. Swade, how many 2 bedrooms are there listed?
21.
Okay. Would it be possible for you to show us the 21 2 bedrooms?
Unit 301. Unit 302. Unit 303. 304. Three zero five,
These are 2 bedrooms, is that correct?
yes. 306. 307. 308. 309. 312. 314. 316. 318. 320. I'm sorry, not 320. Three 27. 328. 330. 321, 319, 317, 215, it should be 315, 313, 311. Those are all 2 bedrooms.
And the magic number is?
Twenty-two, not 21.
All right. How many 1 bedrooms does it state?
2 strictly 1 bedrooms, 9 1 bedrooms with lots.
All right, I assume we're not dealing with the strictly 1 bedrooms. So why don't you tell us the 9 1 bedrooms with offices? Is that correct, Mr. Kankowitz? You understand where I'm
I
going?
understand where you're going, I'm just trying to see what units he has not mentioned.
Well, it wouldn't be the strictly 1 bedrooms, because that wouldn't show as a 2 bedroom.
We've eliminated 329, 310, and testified to.
Okay, so let's just do the 1 bedrooms with offices.
$320?
You sorry, 320?
Yes. 322? 324? 326? 331? 332? 333? 334? 309?
I'm sorry, 309?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so I should take out of the column of 309 that you described moments ago as part of the 21 two-bedrooms, I should put that in as a one-bedroom with an office.
Look at it carefully,
Correct.
Mr. Swede. Okay, so it's your testimony that it's not a two-bedroom, it's a one-bedroom.
309.
Is 309.
There's a one-bedroom with office.
Okay. And
How many one-bedrooms do we have?
no, by my count, his testimony, Mr. Chairman, including the last 309, we have 9-bedroom with office, as shown on the plan.
And 21
21
two-bedrooms.
two-bedroom.
You take the 309 and make that a
Right,
one-bedroom.
right. Okay. One last question, Mr. Swett.
Thank you, by the way, thank
Thank
you, Mr. Swed, for doing that.
Thank you.
Well,
Were you here for the testimony, Mr. Arecibi, the other night?
yes.
Were you here for the bunch of hypotheticals I asked him about? Plan?
Yes.
Do you remember any of that?
Well, I'm just gonna object to that question.
I'm sorry?
Remember all the hypotheticals? If he's gonna ask a question based
What was the
on,
question?
No,
he says, do you remember all the hypothetical questions I asked?
No, but nobody can remember that.
Okay, I'll strike that. Do you remember my series, if not verbatim, do you remember that I walked Mr. Arecibi through a series of hypothetical questions, even if you don't remember the details of every single one of them?
Yes.
Okay. If you can recall, if you can, great. Do you recall whether the hypothetical unit I was questioning Mr. Arecibi about?
This is a hypothetical question?
No, it is a simple question of recollection. It was asked, do
Keep
you
going,
recall?
Keep going.
Okay, and then for simplicity, by extension,
Finish the whole,
simple.
Mr. Alonso, let him finish the whole question before.
Do you recall the hypothetical series of questions I asked with regard to a particular shape and layout of the unit I was questioning Mr. Arecibi about from the other night? Do you remember?
Faintly.
Okay, you remember things. Do you remember my asking him about the definition? I'm not asking you if you know or don't know. Did you remember my asking him about the definition of habitable unit?
I seem to recollect.
Okay, and I went through a series of questions, recall me going through a series of questions about the New Jersey Housing Code and the definition of habitable a habitable room. Do you recall that?
Yes.
I'm just asking you to recall the series of questions.
Yes.
Great. Yeah. Do you recall my asking him about, in the hypothetical, a unit that, I'm sorry, you strike it, you said that, okay. Let me point your attention to unit 3, right? He just testified that that's marketed as a 2-bedroom, correct? Okay, and it has an interior area, he testified has no direct facing or access to a skylight or to window, correct?
Yes.
And the same is true of unit 317 right next to it, correct?
Yes.
And the same thing is true of several of the other units that are depicted as either units 2B or 2B2 on this plan, correct?
Yes.
Okay, now, a couple last questions and we'll get off of all of this. You said that you depicted 9 units that are shown as office, correct?
Yes.
I'm sorry, one bedroom with office. Now, let's just look at unit 309. That was one of the ones you picked, correct?
Yes.
Is it the case that the unit you're referring to in 309, the quote-unquote office room, if you were, is the room all the way to the left as you enter off the corridor? Okay, correct. And that room, so to speak, that area does not show a door swinging open or closing that area, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, if you know, I don't know if you know factually because you're involved in the, from acquisition to development, so if you know, do you know whether that room I'm showing in unit 309 that doesn't have the door, whether that room could conceivably be used as, an office, the way you depicted it on your plans?
Yes.
You know whether that room could conceivably be used by the tenant as a storage area, just to store boxes and seasonal clothing items, those kinds of things? Yes. Do you know whether, with the introduction of a movable, non-attached, collapsible wall or folding partition, whether that space could be used as a bedroom?
And again, objection, it's a hypothetical question.
I understand. Mr. Sway, can you answer?
Yes.
Yes, you can answer it, or yes, it could be used as a bedroom?
Consider.
Conceivable. Okay. Now, let me ask you another question. And this may be outside of your operations. Are you in charge of determining the tenancies of the people occupying the Meridia Park Avenue, or is that something that falls into that another group?
Property manager.
Okay, that's out of your area. Okay, great. What are the other set of plans that Mr. Aristide put up initially? Can you put those up again?
Well, they're on
I'm sorry. Let me get that out of your way. Thanks.
Back up there?
Yeah, would you mind? Yeah. I'll help you. You want to help me? I won't touch it. Yeah, however you want. I'm just holding them up. Mr. Swed? Hi. I'm just going to show you what the picture depicted is A120. There's a revision date of August 4th, 2014. In your capacity as COO, have you seen these plans before?
Yes.
Okay, you're familiar with them to the extent that your role in this process dictates?
Yes.
Okay, let me just ask you just a couple quick questions. I want to ask you about the layout of levels 5 through 12. That's quick questions. Let me show you a unit depicted as unit type 1D, hyphen 1 bedroom, 893 square feet. You see that? It's towards the, excuse me, southerly side of the building?
Yes.
Okay, very simply. You walk in there, immediately to your right, there's an open area that looks like a room, but it has no door on it, right?
Correct.
Okay, and depicted on this plan is the word bedroom, showing that this is a 1 bedroom, correct? I'll ask you the same series of questions I just asked you about Unit 315 on the parking area. That area in there when you come in, it has no direct access to a skylight or to a window, correct?
Correct.
No direct facade, no direct touching that doesn't apply to skylight or window, correct? Doesn't have a door shown on it, does it? Okay, it could be used, I'll go through the same series of questions, it could be used for storage, correct?
Mr. Pedro, can you do me a favor?
What?
Would you ask him all three questions, all three, possibilities in one question?
Mr. Chair, I don't mean to be overly technical, I was taught this a long time ago, that when you ask a compound question, the answer someone gives logically may not be the answer specifically to the piece of the compound you're asking. If I ask them,
Right.
are you 10 feet tall and are you alive?
Let me
you might-
try. Mr. Swed, regarding that area, is it conceivable that it can be used as either a storage area, a bedroom, or an office?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. And following up on the chairman's, if I showed you similarly situated rooms, namely, when I say similar situated, I mean on this particular floor plan, which is applicable to 5 through 12, an interior room that has no direct abutting area or wall to a window or a skylight, on any of these units and on any of these floors, is it conceivable that that space could be, or room could be used for either office, storage, or bedroom?
Yes.
Oh, thought. Tried to get it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Take it, Mr. Swed, that the concept, or the contemplated, if you can answer, that the contemplated operation, once this building is erected, if this building is erected, that the operation, the tenanting, and the control of who is tenanting and how they're tenanting is a job and a function that lies outside of your ambit of responsibility as COO that you described.
Correct.
And it falls on the property management group or bureau in your company.
Correct.
So you're not in a position to answer any questions on those topics.
I have general knowledge, not any specific day-to-day,
Sorry, not in a specific what?
specific day-to-day operation.
By the way, are you involved in any way, shape, and form in formulating the template of the lease for this, that's contemplated for this property?
No.
COO, this is within your limit. I'm sorry, as the COO for Capadadley Properties, do you know how many of the parking spaces, do you know how many units are now tenanted or occupied at Meridia Park Avenue?
Yes,
How many?
123.
I'm sorry?
123?
123 spaces. And do you know?
Spaces or units?
I'm sorry, units. How many units are tenanted?
123.
How many units are there total?
125.
125.
I'm
And you
sorry,
know how?
I can't hear you.
I'm sorry, 21.
123 units are leased
Okay,
and occupied.
okay.
I have 125 total units.
Thank you.
And do you know how many parking spaces are available at Meridia Park Avenue?
Total parking spaces, 219 parking spaces.
And that includes spaces at the municipal lot for that property, correct?
Yes.
About 75 spaces, right? About 75 spaces a part of the municipal lot at Meridia?
I didn't think there were that many. I thought it was less than that.
I'm sorry, I don't think there was that many, what?
I didn't think there were that many. I thought it was less than.
I can't hear.
I'm
you.
sorry, I'll ask you this way. If I just refresh your recollection, about 73 municipal spaces on the Meridia Park Avenue property?
This says 37.
No, I'm sorry, I transposed. About 37 municipal spaces are utilized for the Meridia Park Avenue?
Approximately.
And do you know how many parking spaces are currently tenanted or leased tenanted by Meridia Park Avenue?
No.
If you know the answer to this, do you know if this application for Meridia Boulevard contemplates an application for a tax abatement from the town of West New York?
No.
Is that no, you don't know whether it does contemplate?
No, I do know.
You do know, let me ask you, do you have knowledge as to whether this application for Meridia Boulevard contemplates seeking a tax abatement from the town of West New York?
I have knowledge.
Okay,
Yes.
and what is your knowledge with regard to that?
There is no tax abatement application.
Do you know whether the Capadadley Properties intends in the future to apply for tax abatement for this property?
If one is available, sure.
Okay, so you cannot stand here and rule out to this board that as part of this application, Capadadley Properties or whatever entity it is will not seek a tax abatement for this property. Is that correct? Okay.
I'm sorry, what's the answer?
Correct.
And nothing further, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Swift.
I just have a couple of regrets.
Absolutely.
Mr. Sweat, there was, it's 2-page printout that was given to you from the website. Do you remember seeing this?
Yes.
And one of them says Meridia on the Boulevard.
Yes.
There's a picture of the building.
Yes.
Is that the old building that was originally approved by this board?
Yes.
Okay, so you're not advertising this application as coming soon. This is something that was actually approved by the board. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, in terms of the parking spaces at Park Avenue, you said there are 2 apartments available. Are there parking spaces available?
Yes.
Okay, more than what's needed for the 2 empty apartments?
Yes.
Okay, so you exceed the number of parking spaces based on what the demand is.
Objection.
Is that a fair
Don't
statement?
understand it. Don't understand the question. Exceed what?
Let's see if the witness understands the question.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Now, there was, a series of questions with respect to these office spaces that conceivably can be used as bedrooms. And I think the way that it was formulated was if there's these movable partitions that you put in the way, can it conceivably be used as a bedroom? The answer was yes.
Correct.
And if you have the dining room area where the table is, you were to move the dining room table, and conceivably, if you were to put these movable partitions, can that be, the dining room area be a partition, bedroom?
Yes.
And if you go to the living room area, you put up these partition movable walls, can the living room be turned into a bedroom?
Yes.
Okay? And likewise, if you go into the kitchen, you move the microwave out of the way, you put a partition in the way, can the kitchen be turned into a bedroom? Conceivably.
Yes.
Okay, so are you proposing 6-bedroom apartments, or you're proposing a 1-bedroom apartment with an office?
A 1-bedroom with an office.
And that becomes an enforcement issue
Correct.
within Cabot-Dagley properties, correct?
Correct.
Now, you also oversee the construction, is that what you said earlier?
Yes.
Okay, as part of that, do you participate or partake in the selection of building materials?
Yes.
And finishes?
Yes.
And locks?
Yes.
Okay, there was testimony earlier that all these apartments are going to be controlled by key fobs, as opposed to a regular key.
Correct.
How can a tenant get a key fob? Can they go to the locksmith and reproduce a key fob?
No.
Where's the only place to get a key fob?
From our management office.
So if you have a 1-bedroom apartment and there's a lease with a husband and wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever it is, and there's 2 occupants, you give them 2 key fobs, you give them more.
Just give them 2 key fobs.
What if they want to utilize one of the empty spaces as a bedroom and bring in a tenant to help sublease the space and help with the rent? Do they get a key fob?
No.
So are there mechanisms built into the construction and development in order to try to eliminate the use of these spaces as other than what they're intended?
Yes.
Thank you.
I have a couple redirects, since he asked him about operation beyond construction. I'll go there with too. Mr. Swett.
It wasn't operation. It
Oh,
was
key
construction.
operate, asking how key fobs are used seems to me go way past the construction point and goes into the operation and
No.
management.
That goes into the design and the selection of the materials during the construction phase.
You asked him about specific tenants who would use it. So let's go there.
Right,
Mr.
because when
Swett.
you're designing it, you buy the key fobs in order to be able to give it to the tenants.
So let's ask you one question about tenants, Mr. Swett.
Let's hear the question.
Mr. Swed, I go back to the design of the unit. I have it up on A120. It says unit type 1D, 1 bedroom. See that there?
Yes.
Okay? And Alan Aardvark and Bonnie Bailey come to your management office.
Objection, no pets allowed.
Right, 2 people.
Two adults come to your rental management office, okay? Right? As tenants. And they say, we're 2 adults. They get 2 key fobs, right?
Yes.
Right? And they're getting 2 key fobs is the end of the inquiry as to whether they share a bedroom or they each occupy a bedroom because they don't have an intimate relationship, they have a platonic relationship, correct? It's the end of your inquiry.
Yes.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Asking other questions, it's in the after. Okay. So, from your standpoint in terms of the issuance of key fobs, you don't know whether the 2 adults using getting those 2 key fobs are going to be using that facility as a 2-bedroom, each adult having 1 room in what's depicted as a 1-bedroom, or whether they're going to be sharing a bedroom and using that room for something else. Right? You don't know. Correct?
No.
Thank you. Nothing more.
Thank you very much, Mr. Swett.
Nothing further.
Well, the board will hold its questions till its time is because certainly we have questions also. Are there any other witnesses? I guess the only other witness is Mr. McDonough, he's not here. So,
Can we spend a minute talking about scheduling, Mr. Chairman?
sure,
Is the chair, please, just a couple of minutes?
sure, you want to talk, Mr. Alonso, you want to talk about scheduling?
Sure. And I don't know if the board's back to do on the record, I'm happy to do that.
We can do it on the record.
Very simply,
We
my,
have it December 1st.
my understanding is December 1st, which is a special meeting set aside for this, and this alone. And then-
No, no, no.
I'm sorry,
We've
excuse
got-
me, you indicated earlier we
We
would
have
start
two
at
short
about
ones in the beginning,
7:45.
so this will not start until 7:45. The meeting will start at 6:30.
Okay. And then I think I noted that there's a special meeting set forth for December 11th, which this application is the only game in town. Am I right about that? That's a regular
Oh,
meeting.
that's regular.
Oh, okay. Do you know, does the board know its agenda for the regular meeting in terms of how
Not
much?
yet.
Right.
Certainly, this will fill up a lot of it.
The reason I'm saying is follows, the into the January 2015 term, and just making an assumption that the board composition is as it is, although my recollection from some of the early papers are that certain board members' terms expire at the end of December 25th, 2014.
My understanding is that there's going to be action by the Board of Commissioners at the November 24th meeting.
Okay, so there will be composition and so forth. There will be a full complement of persons to hear.
I would never endeavor to speak for the Westminster Board of Commissioners, but we certainly are hopeful.
I'm going to January
Yeah, we're hopeful.
2015, since I don't know, we'll try hard to complete things that have to be completed next to variance. My understanding from your website is that it's regular scheduled meeting on the 22nd of January.
I believe that's it. I mean, we.
I just saw it publicly. You know, you adopted it last.
Correct.
I don't see anything special, so I don't know when you reconstitute necessarily if there are new members. Maybe you don't reconstitute. You don't have to have a reorganization.
We're
meeting.
really obliged to the event.
My concern is, I have long-standing plans to be out of town from the 7th to the 21st.
That's perfect.
Well, I'm mentioning it only because I will not be available if the board wishes to schedule a special meeting on this January 20th, January 7th through
Okay.
January 20th. I'm scheduled to return very early in the wee hours of morning hours of January 21st. And
For the
provided my
22nd.
claim is not delayed, I can make myself available to work the night of the 21st, the Wednesday, and certainly be here Thursday, the 22nd, barring something completely unforeseen.
Mr. Cantor, all I'm going to note is that you will not be available from January 7th
Yes,
to the 21st.
through the 20th, the 21st, I would like, that 21st is a Wednesday, but
Well, we wouldn't-
you wouldn't have a public hearing two nights in a row.
We would not.
Okay,
2015.
yes, sir.
Okay, that's fine. I
And
appreciate
I
that.
didn't want to wait, I wanted to let you know.
No, I appreciate that.
and
Thank
let
you
Mr.
very much.
Alonso know,
Thank
so-
you. And as for testimony, starting the first, we'll have Mr. McDonough, and after that will come the comments by the public. After that will be the, I'm going to say objectors, planner, with cross-examination by the applicant's attorney. I believe then will be the board questions, and any questions by the board consultants. And then it'll be a decision,
Those rebuttal witnesses.
if necessary. Oh, sure, absolutely. That'll be before, the questions by the board. So in other words, all the applicant's testimony and all the objector's testimony will be before the board asks questions. After the board asks questions, the final thing will be the board's determination.
And one last, at this point, housekeeping question, Mr. Chairman, looking forward, the last time we were on this matter, the board asked that there be, I believe, written summations submitted and allowed for short oral summations to supplement that, if my recollection is correct. Is that
I think that's a
similar
very-
procedure
that's a good idea.
contemplating?
You know, I would much rather have that, to have written summations with short oral summations because of the time element involved. Mr. Alonso, how do you feel? Either way is fine.
I'm just looking ahead, so we don't.
I think that's
run up against it.
a good idea.
Thank you.
Just one question, I know last time they presented both the planner and the traffic engineer, are you bringing back a traffic engineer also, or just the planner?
I have, based upon the now total of Mr. Paragoy's testimony, I have to decide that. I don't know the answer to that. I will know that shortly.
Okay.
But just to be clear, my expectation is we will not reach my planner's testimony on the meeting of the first, because we're gonna
I
have.
would, no, that to me is very close to, I'm not an absolutist, I'm not an absolutist, but fantasy is in a different realm. No, that to me is very close to impossible, because we have Mr. McDonough and then we have the public comment. If we get through with Mr. McDonough and the public comments on the first, I will be a very happy person. But I doubt I'll probably continue to be my grouchy.
So for my scheduling purposes, I need not have the planner available on the first to be there.
I don't think so.
Thank you.
I don't think so. I would think Mr. McDonough is going to take time and if we have the public comment.
Thank you.
That concludes this portion of Meridian Boulevard. The meeting is now open to the public. Would any member of the public like to step forward? Yes, sir.
Can anyone announce the date at the beginning?
Okay, I'll announce it again. This is continuing to our special meeting on December 1st at 7:45 p.m. because we're going to do two small matters before, with the meeting starting at 6:30 in these chambers. No further public notice is necessary, as our council has always advised me to say. Any member of the public like to step forward and make comments? Not seeing anybody. Oh, we have one person. Yes, ma'am.
Actually, it's just a question. We had a 5-minute time limit for questions previously, but.
You think that was too long?
No, I don't think it was too long, but we were allowed to come back if we had additional questions. And you said we cannot come back to a second. Will there be a time limit?
Well, let's see how it goes. Certainly, we don't want people to take, I wouldn't think to take more than 10, 15 minutes. I mean, that's a long time.
So I can tell people,
I think 10, 15 minutes is
not more than.
I think 10, 15 minutes is a long time for somebody to talk, but as opposed to setting out a preemptive time limit at this point, why don't we see how it goes? For instance, we set out 15 and you took only 3, as I recall, which was great. So to set up a time limit which may restrain people, where some people may do 5, other people may do 7, some may do 10, some may do 2, I'd rather leave it open at this point to see whether it's abused or not.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. I'm very likely going to miss December 1st. Hopefully I'll be back on the 11th. Having people sign up for the public comments, I don't think they'll sign up, but we stop that on the 1st.
No, because nobody has a second chance. So there's no, in other words, when we had the public questions before, we permitted to do twice, more than once. So that's why it was necessary for people to sign up when they were carried to the next meeting. But in this case, since somebody has their full say once, there's no sense in carrying anybody if it's necessary. I don't even know if it would be necessary, because there's no second chance. You see where I'm coming from? Well, hopefully we're not done by with the public comments on the first, which I doubt. But thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Would the board members want to ask questions before public comment?
No, not at all.
Really?
The board members asking questions is the last thing before decision.
We have no comment about it.
I'm sorry?
Curious.
Okay, I hope I've satisfied your curiosity.
Always.
Thank you. Not seeing any other member of the public, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.